Even the whole family should abide by the etiquette. By the way, I heard that the emperor's younger brother met a group of people who were insidious in the North City yesterday. He lost a lot of money and had to go to Liangshan to take refuge. Why didn't he go back to Yuzhou to rest first? And why did he have to start this mess again? Yin Mo's face was warm and calm, and his voice was also warm and moist. He was like two people who took human life when he raised his hand and covered his face yesterday. Yin Beicheng smiles and turns his eyes to the flowers on the street. Seeing this, Imo Shanghua didn't shirk her shyness at all. She said, "The Lord wants to go back and have a rest. He just thinks that His Highness is still here to clean up the mess, but we have to go back to enjoy our leisure. I'm sorry, so I come here quickly to help him clean up the mess." Yin Beicheng agreed and nodded. What the princess said is very true. How can we abandon our brother? Just in time, we can also wait for our father's will together. Our king has lost a lot of soldiers this time. Brother, you must speak well in front of our father and let him make up for us. Yin Mo's eyes were gloomy, but his face was still smiling, as elegant as the breeze. I know you've lost a lot. There's something wrong with me. I didn't expect that. In this way, I should ask my father to give you more rewards. Yin Beicheng was so happy that he took his teacup and said, "In this way, I will be relieved. In this way, I will also take tea instead of wine. I'd like to thank Brother Wang first." Then, like Yin Mo, he drank all the tea in his hand. Yin Mo Li lips cape smile, not to reduce. Emperor younger brother is also so polite. I heard that 2,000 people were captured this time. I wonder if your highness has figured out how to deal with them? Two people are saying, and then sit next to a long time on the flower's suddenly open mouth, broke the seemingly harmonious situation. When Yin Beicheng heard the speech, he also said carelessly, "There are so many people. It's really a headache to think about it. Brother Huang, why don't you say that I'm a deputy commander? I didn't make much effort this time. If you don't help me at this time, it would be unfair for those brothers." Having said that, Yin Moli seemed to be in danger if he refused to talk about it. He said, "Naturally, it's in accordance with the law. Those who make trouble will be brought back to the imperial city, and the rest will be used as labor when their father and emperor are in power. The real people who know about it are all his people. He has already sent people to solve the future trouble. Now the people who are captured above the surface, the people who make trouble and the important leaders are just scapegoats. As for the rest, they're the real people who have been captured by the innocent people. What they know is that they're the same as the outside world. Strictly speaking, Yin Moli really has nothing to fear. However, thinking of yesterday's plan, he couldn't help but be a little more wary of Huayin North City, and didn't say too much. Mo Shanghua's face remained unchanged, and she continued to ask gradually and circularly, "I don't know where your highness wants to take people to do servitude?" Yin Mo's eyebrows moved, and after a moment's pause, he immediately asked, "I'm not hiding from the princess, but I'm worried about it now. There is no place for the imperial court to supervise the production near Anzhou. What's more, these 2,000 people are not a small number. For a moment, they are really very upset. Since the princess has been in Yuzhou for several months, she must have known all about Yuzhou. May I have a talk about them?" Mo Shanghua was married to Yuzhou as a woman, not a general. It's not surprising that she knows all about things outside the government. Mo Shanghua's lips are slightly raised, and he smiles modestly. "I'm in the palace all day. How can I know about things outside the palace? However, when I just came out, I was thinking about it all the time. I went out of my way to ask the garrison officers and soldiers in Liangshan, but I really got some questions. According to that officer and soldier, the nearest and the biggest place for military service is in Yuzhou. It seems that it is in a place called Jiangjun. It is said that this place is rich in mineral resources, so it needs many military personnel." During the conversation, she has been staring at Yin Moli, but if you look at her carefully, there is nothing different on her face. It's just the way when she looks at others politely while talking with fishmen. But Yin Moli's heart suddenly shakes. She feels that she seems to know something, especially when she mentions Jiangjun. But the matter of Jiang County was extremely confidential. How could she know it? It was impossible. They must have thought too much. After a moment, Yin Mo shook his head and said, "It's not right. Jiangjun is 2 days away from here. There are too many captives. The loss of the emperor's younger brother is too heavy. I'm afraid there are no more people to watch these people on the road. If they are rebellious, there will be another trouble on the road. It's a disaster." Hearing this, Yin Beiqing was puzzled and said, "When I came from Yuzhou, I counted 8,000 people. Although I counted all the 3,000 people, I didn't think the loss of my brother was heavy. There were hundreds of people left in my brother's place. So, the total number of people should be more than the prisoners. How can I not see it? Is it too much for you? Brother, every word and deed is a full confusion, as if they really don't understand Yin Moli's words, so people can't see half a flaw. Yin Moli didn't intend to return the rest of the troops, but he didn't have time to mention his good excuse. Now he suddenly mentioned it, and his lips suddenly froze. He didn't know how to respond. The flowers on the street are watching, and the corners of their lips are silent. In an instant, they are smoothed again, as if nothing happened just now. This Yinbei city, playing as a pig and eating a tiger, is really not ambiguous. It puts Yin Mo Li in an awkward place. When Yin Beiqing saw that Yin Moli didn't speak, he frowned and thought about it. Then he suddenly stood up as if he had thought of something and said, "Brother, you don't want to take my soldiers from Yuzhou to escort those mob leaders. You can't do anything about it. It's a capital crime to lead troops into the imperial city without permission. Brother, you're going to trap the king for injustice." "No, I can't promise." Yin Moli didn't expect that he had been advising Bao Dandy all these days, and he was submissive to him. Yin Beicheng, who was the leader of the party, suddenly appeared to be rebellious. His face was in a mess for a moment, and then he quickly adjusted it. He laughed awkwardly. "How could Brother Huang think so? I just forgot to tell you that Anzhou City was destroyed. Some mobs are burning, killing, and looting. They're almost dead. The king wants them to stay and help repair the land of Anzhou. After finishing the repair, they will be returned to you. Why bother so much?" Hearing this, Mo Shanghua came forward and said, "Many of these people are forced to be captured, not out of their own wishes. In my opinion, it's better to let those people who are not out of their own wishes go home, so that Anzhou can regain some of its anger and not be completely reduced to a dead city. As for the rest of them, it's better to let them also work and repair in Anzhou and send our Yuzhou soldiers to supervise again. When a repair is finished, we will bring these people back to Yuzhou to serve along the way." Yin Beiqing immediately looked at Yin Moli with a look of approval. The princess's method can be described as killing 2 birds with 1 stone. "Brother, according to the king, it's better to do this. It also saves you and me trouble. What do you think? Anyway, it's really a wonderful way." Yin Mo Li sure had no reason to refuse, so he had to nod his head. "It's really a good way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. In that case, let's do it like this. As for the generals who are left to supervise and manage, I think they will be sent. Just send a deputy general, brother. You don't know how brave this deputy general is. If he hadn't fought with General Mo, I might have lost my life to tell you this now." Before Yin Mo's words were finished, Yin Beiqing directly interrupted him and killed his idea of sending one of his own people to supervise him. The most important thing is that he is the general of Yuzhou. He must be able to command his original subordinates, which should be more convenient. The two of them blocked all the words Yin Moli wanted to say. With such tacit understanding, there was a feeling that the husband and wife were consistent with each other. Now Yin Moli, their partner, was in a delicate mood. He couldn't help scratching a gloomy color in his eyes. His hands under the table were tight and silent for a few seconds. He said suddenly, "Since the emperor's younger brother and younger sister have already thought of a good candidate, there is absolutely no reason for the palace to refuse. Let's do as you say." "Well, since they want it, he will give it to them. Anyway, they will never dig something out of it. As for those disabled soldiers in Yinbei City, don't worry. Just take it as the way he left for them. Yinbei City, Mo Shanghua, I want to see what kind of pattern you can make." Yin Beiqing didn't know what he thought in his heart. He just laughed contentedly and said with a smile, "So, I have nothing important to do. What else can I do for my brother?" There are no important things for the time being. They are all unimportant things. It's not worth worrying about. Yin Mo Li shook his head, a faint smile. Right, since the emperor's younger brother is going to wait for his father's will here, I'll send someone to arrange for you to leave a residence here. Don't worry, your highness. As soon as Yin Mo's voice fell, Mo Shanghua immediately retorted, for fear that he would pass the order. I have arranged a residence in Liangsheng with the Lord, and there are many wounded people waiting for me to treat in Liangsheng. If you're in Anzhou, it will be inconvenient. The two places are not far away. If your highness has something important, just send someone to inform you. Yin Beicheng smiles again. The princess said well, and Liangsheng's delicacies are also good. If the emperor brother is free, he will try it. Now, this place is so deserted, the emperor brother still doesn't want to stay here all the time. It seems to be a kind word, but it seems to say that you are suffering here. I'm going to have fun in Liangsheng. Yin Moli's eyes twitched a little, and he resisted the impulse to sweep the two out of the house immediately. He said with a smile, in that case, we won't leave you here. As for the emperor's brother's good intentions, we have also learned from him. When we are free in the future, we will certainly go and have a look. It's very unpleasant to get along with these two people today. As he was about to find a way to leave, he heard Mo Shanghua suddenly say, how can the bodyguard who is following His Highness Chong, I disappear today? Yin Mo Li Mao, bottom of the evil, once again sink a few minutes. The face is just dark complexion. Wei, he has been in a station yesterday, unfortunately stationed dead. It's a pity that the bodyguard was so good at martial arts that he died yesterday, he said after a pause. She just changed her voice. Now it's time to change the dressing. I have to go back and stare. I won't stay long. There is something important to deal with in this hall, so I won't send it. Yin Moli just stood up and gave a little smile. Brother, stay here. Yin North City smiled to sing of Wei voice. Then lead the Mo Shang flower. Two people go together. When they went away, the smile on Yin Mo's face was slowly put away. A layer of cloud covered his handsome face, and the evil color in his eyes could not be removed. Somebody. As soon as the voice fell, a soldier came in. See, your highness. He stared at the empty door in front of him without expression and said, go and invite General Zhang to our study. I'll go later. Yes. Mo Shanghua wanted to ride a horse by herself, but she just got on the back of the horse. Yin Beicheng shamelessly followed her and sat behind him like this, holding the reins in both hands, and naturally put her in his arms. Mo Shanghua is not as weak as she was yesterday. She subconsciously wants to struggle. Before she has time to move, Yin Beicheng seems to have expected that she will behave like this. She says, the princess's injury is not complete. It's not proper to ride alone. I think you just came here with a reluctance. I'd better let you accompany me. Otherwise, I'll touch the wound, and I'll be happy again it hurts. Having said that, she had no chance to break away from him because his arms were like a wall of iron. Mo Shanghua really can't help it, so he can only ride with him obediently. However, thinking of his words, he can't help cursing, rascal. That's a great rascal who likes you. Yin Beicheng laughed very usefully. He deliberately put his lips to her ears and opened his mouth low. All of a sudden, her ears turned red and she was too shy to speak. In the middle of the journey, Mo Shanghua's shyness faded a lot. He lowered his voice and said in a voice that only two people could hear. Since Yin Moli has sent people to direct and perform himself, there must be some insiders among those prisoners. You must send people to watch them these days and never let them contact with the outside world, so that those insiders can be found by Yin Moli and wait for Yin Moli leaving Anzhou. I'm in the process of careful investigation. On the surface of Yin Beicheng, he was still in a state of wandering mind, but the words in his mouth were completely opposite to his unorthodox appearance. I'll send someone to watch him. Just rest assured. The emperor decreed that Yin Moli, the second prince, had made great contributions to pacify the rebellion in Anzhou and saved all the people. He was granted the title of Prince Ling and returned to Beijing a few days later to escort the leader of the rebellion army back to Beijing. The prince Yu helped pacify the rebellion and rewarded him with thousands of taels of gold. He was specially authorized to recruit soldiers again. Soon, he sent inspectors to accompany him to drill. The rest of the generals were promoted to one level, give 100 taels of gold. The eunuch sent by the imperial city stood in front of the crowd and spoke slowly in a sharp voice, reading out the emperor's will in front of the crowd. There are so many people who have been granted official posts. Only Yin Beicheng can get away with it with only a few rewards. Although he is allowed to recruit soldiers and buy horses, it's really annoying to send an inspector over. However, Yin Beicheng could not reveal anything on his face. He could only accept the imperial edict with the crowd. And Yin Mo Li's heart is not too happy. It's not that he's not happy. It's just that he's not happy. Although the emperor's edict stated that he would be granted the title of King Ling, it didn't say that he would be granted land. What's the use of a king without land? In the imperial city at that time, the emperor was taking a painting of a famous artist to appreciate, and the color of his worries a few days ago disappeared. His second highness calmed down the rebellion in Anzhou, and the emperor's mood got better. While holding a lamp, Lu Wang began to laugh. The emperor's eyes didn't leave from the picture scroll, and he didn't lift his head. Now it's King Ling, yes. Lu Wang answered and sighed. For so many years, I've been used to calling old slaves. Now it's hard to avoid some unpleasantness. However, the old slave did not understand why the emperor only gave him a title, but did not enfeefment his highness. The emperor then glanced at Lu Wang, his eyes as deep as a well. You talk too much. Lu Wang's face suddenly turned white, and he knelt down. I know my mistake. The emperor put down his picture scroll and looked forward. After a while, he said, Fiefdom, this matter needs to be considered. With that, he put down the scroll in his hand and went to the bedroom on the other side with his negative hand. Call me again at lunch. I'm tired. Yes. Lu Wang's head fell down on the ground. When the emperor went away, he dared to stand up straight. But he patted his cheek and said, Let you talk. The emperor's will has been given, and new officials and Wang's deputy generals in Anzhou will deal with it. Naturally, Yin Beicheng and Mo Shanghua have no reason to stay, and they set out to return to the palace on the day the will was given. As for Yin Moli, he also returned to the imperial city early, and the intersection of several people ended temporarily. After dealing with the affairs in Anzhou, Mo Shanghua and Yin Beicheng were much more relaxed. They took advantage of this rare time to steal some leisure time, playing and driving on the road. Originally, they were able to arrive in one day, but they were forced to walk for 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days ago, all the people in the mansion received the news. They thought that Mo Shanghua in Yinbei City would come back the next day. Unexpectedly, they didn't come back after several days, which made some women in the mansion unhappy. But when they came back, all the people in the house came out to meet them, except Pingji, who was forbidden to stay in the hospital. See ye princess Wan Fu. Get up. Yin Beicheng took the lead to get down from the carriage. Seeing that all the people were kneeling down to salute, he waved his hand at will. Then he quickly turned around and reached out to the rear of the carriage. Mo Shanghua Mao Guang glances at the crowd and catches a glimpse of Nan. He's standing in front of the crowd. He can't help thinking of his status as a side imperial concubine now. His heart suddenly stops. Su Shou, who wanted to be in Yin Beicheng's hand, also takes it back and gets out of the carriage with a skirt. Yin Beicheng didn't feel embarrassed. He just felt a little puzzled and couldn't help looking at the flowers on the street. Ming Ming was fine 2 days ago. How come she's like this again today? What's the matter with this woman? Mo Shanghua did not look back at him, but walked to the door of the mansion. Just walked to the door of the mansion. Then see Qinya full face smile of welcome up in front of her blessing a body. Slave Qinya to the princess, please. Mo Shanghua personally raised her hand and touched the top of her hairy hair. The corners of her lips also contained a smile. Get up quickly. I haven't taken care of you for decades. I'm really not used to it. I miss the princess these days. Qinya's eyes all smile of curved, just eyebrow eyes, but from time to time toward her behind Piao. I think you miss your brother more. Mo Shanghua nodded her bright and clean forehead. Qin Lin went to the backyard to tie the horse. Go. I'll give you half a day off. Qin Yatan was overjoyed. He was so busy that he said, "Thank you, princess." Finished saying this, just full of contained smile, of retreated to go down. Seeing that Qinya has gone far away, she is looking at Nanha and others who are still standing at the gate of the mansion. She glanced at Nanha's ruddy and healthy cheek and said, "Nanji, no, it's Nanpiafai. You look so good recently. You must be much better." Then he nodded. His voice was soft and elegant. "These days, my maidservant and concubine are still in the hospital. I feel better." Between words, there is no sharpness before, every word and deed, just like the first general, respectful but not humble. Shueji seems to be well. The flower on the street only needs to see the south crane, so it's hard to avoid unhappiness in her heart. She simply shifts her eyes to see Shueji behind the south crane. Shuejixing's delicate and thin. At this time, CMO Shanghua smell himself. Busy droop head blessing body. Made concubine body already good all. Lao princess worried. Since everyone is very well and nothing is wrong, Lord, I'll go back first. Mo Shanghua nodded gently, then turned to face Yin Beiqing. Yin Beiqing's soared eyebrows could not help wrinkling and looked at her in a puzzled way. Everyone is very good. What does it have to do with you going back first? The ruddy lip petals of the flowers on the street are gently pursed, and the eyes have never opened. South Crane ordered people to prepare a reception banquet. Two people are not good. No one will go. Yin North City had no choice but to nod. Just, if you want to go back, then go back first. I'll see you later. Mo Shanghua is relieved. When he turns around and leaves, Mao Guang glances at Nan He, but he only does nothing. He doesn't see anything. He walks around him. Women's intuition has always been extremely keen. When Mo Shanghua just glanced at her, and when she got out of the carriage, she deliberately staggered Yin Beiqing's hand, which could not escape the eyes of Nan He. Thinking of this, she can't help but gently lift up an imperceptible radiance on the corner of her lips. It seems that what she did before worked. Qinya and Qinlin were given half a day off just now. When Mo Shanghua went back to the hospital, she found that in addition to their brother and sister, there was Yin Beiqing. She really had no one to speak to, and she had nothing to do when she came back. For the first time, I felt lonely in my heart. Is sitting in the courtyard daydream. The door suddenly rang out the voice of the servant girl. "Princess, Dr. Lu outside to see. She has just returned to the mansion." How did Lu Zheng come at this time? If there is anything, she will ask for help at this time. Mo Shanghua felt a little uneasy in her heart and said, "Please come in." "Yes." After a while, Lu Zheng came in under the guidance of the servant girl. After seeing the ceremony, Lu Zheng looked at his face and saw that his brow was slightly wrinkled, and his face was tinged with a bit of sadness. He was immediately puzzled. "What's the matter with you? Is there something wrong in the house?" If so, when she just returned to the mansion, Nanha would certainly report back in person. But just now, Nanha didn't mention anything else, and the mansion looked like a world of peace. It didn't look like something big happened. Seeing this, Lu Zheng sighed for a long time and then said, "Princess, I know you've been on the road for a few days. I shouldn't disturb your rest at this time. It's just that this matter can't be delayed." Speaking of this, his words suddenly stopped. "Princess, or with Micro-Minister went to Cloud G that place to have a look." "But what happened to Yunji?" Mo Shanghua hard a jump, subconsciously asked. "I'll know when the princess goes with me." Lu Zheng did not give a positive answer, but said so. Mo Shanghua, who is very puzzled, follows Lu Zheng to Yunji's room. The maid who is in charge of taking care of Yunji sees that they are coming. She goes forward to salute. Her face is as usual, and she can't see any difference. In this way, she becomes more and more confused. But when you see Yunji lying on the bed with her eyes closed, as if she is just falling into sleep, the face of Mo Shanghua suddenly changes. She takes 3 steps and 2 steps to Yunji's bed, pulls her hand out of the quilt, and puts one hand on her wrist. Sure enough, there was no sign of beating between the wrists. Dead. The flower willow eyebrow on the street, suddenly deep as sea, full of eyes dignified. When is it? Lu Zheng's brow was also tightly locked, and a touch of sadness hung on his face. He said, just a few days ago, the little girl who took care of Yunji came to me and said that Yunji was ill. Let me go and have a look. I didn't see it right, so I was busy. At that time, Yunji was lying on the bed, dying. This person has something to do with your previous affair, so I disbanded her and put some spices on her body so that her body can be preserved. It seems that her appearance is no different from that of sleeping, so I cheated others. Mo Shanghua didn't speak. She got up and took a look at Yunji's eyelids. Then she checked her carefully. The dark color in her eyes became more and more heavy. Poisoned? It seems that someone wants to take advantage of my absence to impose a charge on me. The first person in her mind is Nanha. In such a big mansion, the one who hates her most must be Nanha. Lu Zhang saw that she was gazing at me and didn't know what she was thinking. He could not help reminding her, the most important thing now is to find out the truth quickly. People die with you, and you're always taking care of them. No matter whether there is any evidence that you are responsible for the poison or not, you may not be able to escape from it. I know, Mo Shanghua nodded, and was about to call on the girl who was in charge of taking care of Yunji. Unexpectedly, the little girl came in first. Report back to the princess, the prince, and the South Princess, and the Snow Lady. As soon as the voice fell, Yin Beicheng and his party came in with a smile on their lips. Princess, Yunji's body is still lying here. It seems that we have to face it ahead of time. Thinking of this, she simply got up and walked to Yin Beicheng. She was blessed in front of him and said, Lord, I want to apologize to you. Excuse me? What kind of sin do you invite? Yin Beicheng looked at Mo Shanghua with a blank face, completely unable to understand what she was saying. Xueji, who had a very weak sense of existence before, saw this and said, Yes, I heard that the princess had saved a lot of people before the battle. She made a contribution, but now she has to plead guilty. In South Crane, it is rare, very quiet stand on one side, look unknown. Mo Shanghua looks at Yunji on the bed behind him and says, I've committed the crime of improper care. Just now I came back. I wanted to give Yunji a routine pulse diagnosis, but I didn't realize that she had been dead for several days. When I asked, I learned that it was Imperial Dr. Lu who saw that there was no principal in the house these days, so he sealed up the body for the time being. After a pause, she simply lifted her skirt and knelt down on the ground. Although I'm not in the government these days, I'm also guilty of dereliction of duty. The Lord can punish me for such a charge. However, both Lu Yu and I have checked that Yunji died of poisoning. The person behind this chose to poison me a few days after I left. It's punishable. I hope the Lord will find out this matter and give me a clear answer and give Yunji a safe life. Yunji has been doing well these days, but she was poisoned after she left. Anyone with some brains might mistakenly think that it was the poison from Mom Shanghua, so as to understand what happened before, and then clear the charge by saying that she is not in the government at this time. The person behind this is really well-intentioned. Thinking about this, she couldn't help glancing at the South Crane behind Yin Beicheng. However, as if he didn't notice her eyes, then he just stood behind Yin Beicheng with a low eyebrow, as if he was not half curious about anything. Yin Beicheng noticed the eyes of Mo Shanghua, and his eyes also swept the South Crane quietly. His face was smiling, and he finally noticed the corpse of Yunji on the bed. There's such a thing. Xueji's face was also full of surprise. His eyes could not help looking at Yunji's ruddy cheek. He sighed at Lu Zheng's medical skill in his heart and said, I have been in the house for so many days, but I don't know. If you want to punish me, you may as well treat me together. Said, also raised the skirt to put on the street, the flower side knelt down. She and this Xueji didn't have much in common in the past. This Xueji used to recuperate in the government. How could she suddenly be so determined to help herself today? The flower's eyes on the street are tinged with suspicion. She can't help but look at Xueji more. However, her eyes are firm and clear, and there is no false meaning. It seems that she really wants to live and die together with herself. The suspicion in her heart is even more serious. Yin Beiqing also took a look at Xueji and pondered for a long time before he stepped forward to help Mo Shanghua up. He looked at Mo Shanghua with great trust and looked like a spoiled girl. It's obvious that someone is deliberately setting up the princess and wants to cause injustice to the princess. What's wrong with me? Lord, this matter must not be decided so rashly. Nanha, who had been filling the air behind him, saw that Yin Beiqing was so partial, so he stepped forward 2 steps and said, Yunji is still related to the innocence of the princess and me. As soon as she died, the previous affair completely disappeared, and the innocence of the princess and me can't be discussed. It's all a matter of no clue. How can we find out? Yin Beiqing's soared eyebrows picked and quite naturally said, People's death is like the light out. From my point of view, the previous things just went to earth with Yunji. But Yunji's death is close at hand, so we need to explore it carefully. Otherwise, she is afraid that she will die and will not live in peace. South Cranehau also didn't expect Yin North City this time after coming back. Unexpectedly to Mo, Sheng a more indulgence dote on. The heart suddenly tight for a while, can't help biting lip way, since the king has his own opinion on this matter, that maidservant concubine nature has no side to say, all depend on the king is. Was Nanha so easy to talk? It's a bit strange. And Mo Shanghua was more and more confused in her heart. She thought about it in her heart and began to explore. My lord, I've been suspicious of what happened before with my side imperial concubine. If we don't find out, our reputation will be affected in the future. Southern imperial concubine, don't you think so? The South Crane again astringes next eye. Light way. Maidservant concubine thinks. Wang Ye's words are reasonable. This matter, even if in pursue, afraid also pursue not so. Now, or at present of matter. Smell speech. Snow G also busily followed to insert. Maidservant concubine also thinks so. In that case, I immediately ordered people to go down to investigate. Yin North City nodded. Mao Guang swept a circle in the house. Voice sank a few minutes. Your own slave's mouth, you also want to manage well, before the matter is not decided. I don't want to hear any rumors in the house. Yes, everyone should be in unison. No one dares to say more. After Yin Beiqing left this sentence, he immediately ordered people to go down to investigate. He wanted to stay here for a while, but before he could speak, a young man called him away, saying that he had something to report. As soon as he left, there were only Mo Shanghua, Nanha, and Xueji left in the house. Seeing that Yanbei City had gone, then he felt that there was no need to leave behind. So he said, I think the princess will have to deal with the remnant here for a while, so my maid and concubine will not be here to make trouble for the princess. So I will leave. Hold on. Before walking a few steps, Mo Shanghua stopped her, went to her side, lowered her voice, and said, Are you satisfied with the result? At the moment, Yin Beiqing is not here, and Nanhe is not going to keep acting. There's a bit of sarcasm and provocation in her eyes, and she also lowers her voice and says, It's up to the king to be satisfied. Instead of worrying about it, I think the princess is worried about who the prince will stay with these days. After a pause, she glanced at Xueji, who was not far behind the flowers in the street. The harvest you got this time is not small. Even the slaves have sent them to the door by themselves. The princess has to watch. It's not good to be bitten any other day. With that, she retreated 2 steps, blessed a gift, and then left. The flower on the street is looking at the figure of the South Crane, which is gradually moving away. I can't help thinking about it in my eyes. Now she's a little confused. What's the purpose of Nanha's doing this? Is it hard to succeed? She's worried that she's finally cured Yunji, and her previous affairs won't come to an end? Or deliberately provoking her, telling her that her current ability has already been able to easily insert people into her yard. If she can poison Yunji today, she will be able to poison her another day? Just after thinking about it, Xueji came up and said, The princess must have suffered a lot before she went to the battle. Look, you're a little thinner. I ordered someone to send you some Dong Yijiao. If the princess is not too crude, you can use it to take care of her son. Mo Shanghua Mao Guang falls on Snow Ji body, toward her tiny nod, so thank you. After a few seconds, she said, but you have never met me before. Why did you have to go through this together with me? Shueji's plain white cheek was a little surprised. Did the princess forget? My concubine had been ill suddenly in the house before, and I couldn't find a doctor to treat her. You came to see her before. Although I've been ill since then, I always remember her feelings. Mo Shanghua frowned and searched carefully in her brain. After a while, she finally found some micro-pictures about this matter in her brain. She couldn't help but smile. It's like this. In this case, I'll accept all your good intentions. The princess is like this. The maidservant concubine in the heart just passed the idea of go. Shueji's face also stirred up a smile, a little elegant, a little quiet. Maidservant concubine also don't disturb the purity of the princess. Leave first. Said slightly blessing a gift, respectfully back down. The flower mao color on the MO just slightly sinks. The idea in the heart keeps turning. Before she went to see Snow Ji that time, just simply looked at it. Even the medicine has not been prescribed, or can talk about what great kindness. After returning to the government this time, there's so many anomalies, and the pattern has changed so much that I'm afraid there will be many troubles in the future. What are you going to do with it? Just thinking, Lu Zheng suddenly came to her side and pointed to Yunji's body on the bed. Mo Shanghua just came back to her mind. The light of her eyes fell on Yunji's body along Lu Zheng's direction. Keep the body for 2 days to cooperate with the people brought by the Lord. After these days, bury it. Chinya, have you ever seen any suspicious people come to Wuyuan these days? Chinya hasn't had a rest for half a day, but she is pulled back in advance by Mo Shanghua. Chinya just knew that something like this had happened. As soon as she asked, she knelt down and felt guilty. Princess, I'm not good at taking care of you. I haven't seen anyone suspicious. I haven't found anything unusual about Mrs. Yun. Please punish me so much. There was no sense of blame on the flower face on the street, saying, if someone has the heart to start, you are an ordinary woman who has no martial arts on her body. It's normal that you can't find it. Don't blame you. You get up first. I have something else to ask you. Yes, the maid knows. The princess can ask. Chinya weakly Shibuye is still a pair of guilty appearance. Mo Shanghua looked at her helplessly and thought about it. She still wanted to solve the problem herself. She didn't say any more. She only asked, I'll ask you again. Have people come to the hospital these days? Have a South Imperial concubine and Shueji ever been here? Chinya dropped her eyes and thought about it carefully. After a while, she said, except for the servants who came to use the monthly silver, no one has ever come to the hospital these days. My maid heard that Mrs. Nan has been in her own hospital all these years. She has never gone out of her own hospital. She is very peaceful. The flower on the street taps on the table with a rhythmic hand, with a kind of thoughtful color in her eyes. She is not worried about the final result of this matter. After all, Yin Beiqing has left a message at the moment, so she must have just found a substitute for the crime. She's just thinking South Crane. At present, she was more and more curious about the South Crane. Before Yin Beiqing was so fond of her, how did he suddenly change his attitude recently? Of course, the most important thing is the purpose of this matter. The identity of Nanhe must not be as simple as it seems. Now, the only one who can solve her doubts must be that one. As soon as Xiao Mo Hua comes back, he will run to me, but my heart and liver ache when I think about you. Hua Qianlu shakes the folding fan in her hand and walks into the ready elegant room with a smile. She is wearing a loose green robe, which makes the whole person more and more fussy. Mo Shanghua glanced at him lightly, then poured a glass of wine in front of him. You've just been set on fire, and now you're in full swing. Hua Qianlu walked to her and sat down. She said with a smile, Who is my son? But it's just a little trouble. I can't make money all the time. After a pause, he took out a small stack of banknotes from his sleeve and put them in front of Mo Shanghua. This is the dividend you should get from the grain shop in Wujuan in recent months. Here, take it. Mo Shanghua looked down at the banknotes on the table. Before counting them, he pushed them back to Hua Qianlu. Take these, I want to ask you to buy a message. Hua Qianlu didn't look at the silver note on the table. Instead, he continued to shake the folding fan of his saw bow and sighed. It's true that everything is going to go to the Three Treasures Hall. Xiaoma Hua, you will be very sad. You talk a lot of rubbish. Mo Shanghua has long been used to Hua Qianlu's nature, so she simply ignored it and said, I want to know the real identity of Nan He. In terms of Nana's former tone and her martial arts, she can never be an ordinary brothel girl. I can't say it's just a fake identity. Smell speech. The flower Thousand Willow shakes the hand of folding fan shoe of Emile. If the side pour all right, only this matter, this child really can't promise you. What? The flower eyebrow heart suddenly slightly frown up, subconscious inquiry. Hua Qianlu's lips slightly lifted up and gave her a meaningful smile. I once told you that you still need to ask your good husband about this. In short, I won't tell you. With that, he pushed the bank note back to the front of Mo Shanghua with a look of regret on his face. It's a pity that you can't earn money in front of you. For me, it's heartbreaking. The ruddy lip petals of the flowers on the street are gently pursed, and there are some complicated colors in her quiet eyes. I can't see what she is thinking about. Flower Thousand Willow toward her moved buttocks under the six-corner stool toward Mo up flower side lean on, stared her face, pick eyebrow to ask, how? Still for this matter, heart mustard? What are you talking about? The flower eyes on the street once crossed the color of concealment, and one hand crossed in front of the flower willows. What are you doing so near? Hua Qianlu stepped back angrily, habitually took the folding fan in his hand and said, For your sake, I'll tell you something. No matter what you think in your heart and what Nanha has done, your status will not be shaken. Brother Beicheng is more interested in you than anyone else, so you can rest assured. He always likes to stare at people when he talks, but now, when he says this, his eyes are glancing to one side. The look in his eyes is dim, not as bright as usual. It seems that he is saying something unhappy. However, Mo Shanghua didn't see anything strange. She just pinched her palm and said something right and wrong. I'm not thinking about this. There are still important things to deal with in the government, so I'll go back first. Having said that, the next second she got up, completely like she wanted to leave after she got the answer she wanted. Hua Qianlu looks at the wine cup on the opposite seat and the empty seat. She no longer smiles. She raises her hand to take the wine cup and drinks it. I had a day when I pushed women to other people, but I was not happy. He was holding the wine cup, whispering, eyes colored did not just cover, more gloomy and cold. After spending a while in Qinghuan Pavilion, he felt that something was wrong behind him. He quietly looked back and saw that in the dark, there was a man who was very fat and could not see his face clearly. He was staggering behind him. It seemed that he had just gone to Qinghuan Pavilion together and had drunk a few more cups. The flower on the street didn't want to pay attention, just wanted to speed up the pace to leave, but the man suddenly called her, Stop. Girl, I've been with you for a long time, and my legs are sore. Don't you come here and wait on me? Mo Shanghua didn't change her clothes today, but how to get into the palace and how to wear clothes. She's just like a woman now, but she didn't expect to encounter such trouble. After thinking about it, she stopped. How do you want me to serve you? Of course, hiccup, he. The man came forward with a burp and a smile. Just as he was about to touch the shoulder of the flower, a group of people dressed like little fellows came up behind him. Second master, it's bad. Something's wrong. The group of people yelled and chased him in his direction. The action on the man's hands and feet suddenly turned away with an unhappy face. Which son of a bitch is shouting here if it's bad for you? Can you afford it? It's nothing if it's too far away. Why do you feel familiar at such a close distance? Strange in the heart of Mo Shanghua. She simply turned around to see what happened. However, the person in front of her suddenly changed her face, turned around, and wanted to go. The man also saw her face when he turned around on the street. The wine suddenly woke up most of the time. He quickly widened his eyes and exclaimed, Stop her! Please stop her, quick! Although the hearts of the boys are not clear, they still rush forward according to the words and surround the flowers in the street. The man then hurried to the flower in front of the street, grabbed a lantern in the hand of a boy, and looked at it carefully. Then he opened his mouth maliciously. "It's really you. I didn't expect that you were a woman, and I let a smelly girl play around." The flower on the street also squinted to see the sound in front of him. Seeing his face full of flesh and intestines full of belly, his face could not help coagulating. The person in front of her is Wu Cheng, who she made an appointment with in order to get Jianghe. Although Yin Moli bought Jianghe in the end, Wu Cheng must have reflected all the situations she had set up in order to buy Jianghe. What's more, Yin Moli steals back the gold quietly after he gets Jianghe, which makes Wu Chengkai empty. He doesn't hate it more. When did her luck come to such a bad point? Yin Moli was so light that she left easily after the accident. She didn't know it. On the contrary, it was her. But when she came out to ask something, she could meet the client so skillfully. In the heart of a quick measurement, Emo Shanghua simply made up his mind, pretended to be confused, looked at Wu Cheng and others with a blank face. "This master, what are you talking about? Me, did I do something wrong? Smelly girl, you are still pretending to be stupid." Wu Cheng's face was dark, and the flesh on his face was shaking with his jaw as he spoke, which made him look more fierce. "Before you found someone to cheat me, saying that Jianghe was not worth money in your country, which made me turn around. When I saw that I didn't want to sell you, I deliberately found someone to buy at a high price and stole the silver quietly. This is a fairy dance. You've done me a lot of harm. I will never let you go today." It was the first time for him to ask his family to entrust him with an important task, and he encountered such a thing. We can imagine how he would be ridiculed and taught by his family when he went back. More importantly, in this way, he is not qualified to compete with Dafeng. Before, he had been in Yuzhou City for half a month, but the two men he was looking for had never appeared. Now, he could not let them go. "You idiots, what are you still doing? Hurry to catch her." Seeing that the boy beside him still didn't move, he quickly grabbed the boy and kicked him in the ass. Seeing that he had been beaten, all the little fellows reacted to him. They could not take pity on each other. They rushed to the flowers on the street. These guys are just people who know a little about martial arts. They can't even touch half of their clothes. Therefore, she can deal with them easily. Wu Cheng saw that Emo Shanghua was surrounded by dozens of young men and could deal with it with ease. His body was so flexible that his anger became even worse. "You nonsense, 2 girls can't catch it. What do I usually do to raise you? If you can't catch people, you don't want any money this month." When the boys heard the words, their actions suddenly became more and more hard, but they still couldn't hurt half of the hair of the flower. Instead, they all dodged one by one, either bumping this or that, which was quite embarrassing. She didn't mean to tease them, but there were too many of them, and the alley was really narrow. She didn't mean to cause such a result. Seeing that many of the young men had fallen, she realized that the time had come. She was about to go through the wall and ran away. Suddenly, a very dignified man's voice came from her ear. "Who's there?" Then, suddenly, a small group of people dressed as bodyguards came to the end of the alley, and the torch came this way. "Oh no, it's disturbing the city guards who patrol at night. If their identity is exposed at this time, it's even more troublesome." The thought in his mind just turned, and he saw that the group of soldiers had quickly surrounded the alley. As soon as the leader saw the flowers on the street, he directly knelt down on one knee, and the people behind him immediately knelt down. "I'll see the princess." Around the little guys, and even Wu Cheng, suddenly stare round eyes, face unbelievable color, still dull pestle in place. Emo Shanghua didn't speak yet. Seeing that Wu Cheng and others were still standing there, the leader yelled, "You are bold and tough. Princess Yu is here. Don't kneel down and salute quickly." Wu Cheng was roared by the leader of the bodyguard, and his body trembled, along with all his flesh. He knelt down in a daze. Seeing this, all of his boys knelt down. Clearly he is for their own solution around, but the flowers on the street also can't smile, eyes color instead of coagulation down. Lu Zheng was involved in her original layout. As we all know, Lu Zheng was the imperial doctor of Yu's mansion. If Lu Zheng had not appeared in this plan, she would have played a fool and killed him. But now, even if she didn't recognize him, Wu Cheng would have been able to infer it. It's amazing that a princess has done this fairy dance. If it's spread, it's really a little, it's not elegant. Get up. Although I think so in my heart, on my face, I can't reveal the flowers on the street. Princess, yeah. The soldiers stood up one after another. Mo Shanghua had not been able to cure many soldiers in Anzhou before. Many people in the army had no prejudice against her, and they praised each other. Therefore, these soldiers also had great respect for Mo Shanghua. After the soldiers got up, the leader turned around and pointed to Wu Cheng, who was still kneeling on the ground and never recovered. He said, "These people dare to do something wrong to the princess. They will all be arrested and put in jail." Wu Cheng's heart was terrified, and he kept clasping his head toward the flower on the street. "Princess, princess, I don't know you are princess. I just recognized the wrong person. You can be sure that you don't remember the villain's life. Let me go." He came to Yuzhou this time to atone for his exploits. He had to go back after a certain period of time. If he was caught in this way and delayed his business, he would be completely finished this time. Mo Shanghua thought in his heart. After a while, he turned his eyes to see Lu Zheng kneeling on the ground and said, "If you let go, you can, but you have to watch. I'm the princess of Yuzhou. I'm a woman. Yes, it's a little clumsy. If you recognize the wrong person, princess, please don't worry about the villain." Wu Cheng didn't want to, so he didn't dare to lift his head for fear of offending Mo Shanghua. After all, it's not in their country of the moon. Now he's under the control of others. Of course, he has to know the current affairs. Mo Shanghua just got up, turned her eyes, and looked at the bodyguard leader. "Since he has recognized the wrong person, you should deal with it according to the person who has recognized the wrong person. The princess will go back to the palace, and I will give it to you." "Yes." The bodyguard bowed slightly and looked respectful. "At the end, I will send someone to escort the princess back." "No need." Mo Shanghua, as in the past, stealthily went out of the house. If he went back from the front door, with the eyes of those in the house, he could not be sure how much trouble would happen. With that, without waiting for the bodyguard behind to respond, she turned and left, afraid that the soldier would be polite. Seeing that the flower on the street had gone far away, the soldier thought about it and sent someone to follow him far away. Then he turned his eyes to Wu Cheng, who was still kneeling on the ground. "Take them back, shut them up for one night, and put them back tomorrow morning." Guanyi, you can't do this. I have something to deal with, Guanyi." Wu Cheng's mouth immediately incessantly begged for mercy, but his body was still very honest and didn't dare to struggle for half a point. Mo Shanghua has long found the soldiers who were far behind him, so he just found the chance on the way to get rid of them and went back to the house quietly. Originally, when she went on a trip, she didn't get anything, but at least she got some peace of mind. However, she still had some doubts in her heart. Before she could come back to think about it carefully, the more intractable problems were put in front of her. Suddenly, she didn't think about what had happened before. She just thought about what she should do when the Wuching reaction came back tomorrow. After thinking about it, there was only one clumsy way in her heart which she didn't recognize. As long as she doesn't admit, even if Wu Cheng is how to identify, there is no evidence to show her how. At this time, Wu Cheng, who was in prison, took a long time to figure out what was going on. Today, the girl who said she was mistaken is Princess Yu. Before that, she cooperated with the little child to cheat his Dr. Liu. Isn't she working as an official in Prince Yu's mansion? What's more, that young man was thin that day, which was no different from the princess today. These two were the same person. Well, he even let this little girl to cheat twice. Twice she was playing around. Thinking of this, he could not help but rub and stood up from the haystack, scolded his grandmother's. "I planted in this girl's hands so many times." Previously, he didn't associate Lu Yui with it at all. After such calculation, the two of them colluded with each other. "This little bitch, when I go out, you see how I deal with you. Even if you're the king of heaven, you must spit out the gold you swallow." In this way, if he goes back this time, he will be able to really make up for his mistakes. However, he was in prison thinking about what to do after going out one night to let Mo Shanghua return the gold and Jianghe together. But when he was released the next morning, he was almost shocked by a piece of bad news. Last night, he was separated from these boys. Yesterday, he had no chance. This morning, Wu Cheng went back to look at the empty goods in the yard. Just as he was shocked, the leader of a boy knelt down quickly. Second master, last night, when you were away, all the people in the yard were busy except for the two guys who were looking at the goods. As a result, the result was not good. We know where a group of robbers came from and robbed our goods and silver. What? Silver is gone. Wu Cheng was very angry. He grabbed the boy's collar and said angrily, "Why didn't you say that when all the officers and soldiers were there yesterday? Otherwise, maybe we could get some back now. Even if you lose the goods, now you don't even have the money to go back, and you have to spend money on daily necessities of life in Yuzhou. If you don't have the money, I'm afraid they will be hungry early this morning." Thinking about this, the anger in his heart suddenly became more and more intense. He could not help turning around and kicking at the boy. "Waste! Waste! What do I feed you for? I'll drive you out one by one when I go back." Early in the morning, the Lord called me in such a hurry. "What's the matter?" "Mo Shanghua just got up here." Before breakfast was served, he was called by Yin Beicheng. He was naturally confused. As soon as Yin Beicheng saw the flowers coming, he felt relieved. He quickly used his hand to light the flowers and said to Mo Jiang, who was at the bottom of the head at this time, "The princess is coming. She knows more about these things than I do. Please tell her quickly. I'm very tired and dizzy now. I can't understand what you're saying at all." With that, he could not help covering his mouth and yawning, his face full of sleepiness. It's tiring to start acting early in the morning. Mo Shanghua saw him like this, silently added a sentence in his heart, and nodded slightly helplessly. "Yes, as a princess, I have the responsibility to share with the prince." Mo Jiang has no preconceptions about Mo Shanghua in his heart. What's more, the words and deeds of Mo Shanghua in his last visit to Anzhou have long changed his inherent impression of Mo Shanghua. If he had never wanted to, now he naturally has no reason to refuse. Report to the princess. It's like this. Last night, there were several robberies in the city. Many wealthy families were robbed, and many foreign businessmen were also robbed. Now, they have gathered in front of the yamen in the city to discuss a story, especially the foreign businessmen in Yuegua, who are making the most trouble. If she remembers correctly, Wu Cheng is the person from the State of the Moon. It seems that he is really relieved now. But what matters now is banditry. She frowned and thought for a while, and asked herself, so many bandits looted directly. Didn't all the soldiers on patrol find out? Mo Jiang shook his head and locked his sword eyebrows tightly. A lot of generals were lost during the trip to Anzhou. Today, many generals are still in Anzhou and have not come back. The number of patrolling soldiers in the city has to be reduced by more than half. Although they asked to strengthen protection before going out, there are always places where they can't be supervised due to insufficient manpower. After a pause, he added, however, we have checked the time of these robbers' robbery. Every time it's just the time for the night patrol soldiers to change their shifts, and they are working in many companies at the same time. It can be seen that these people should be very clear about the time of the soldiers' night patrol. At last, they will think that these people are probably Yuzhou people, and they are still hiding in the city. Mo Shanghua didn't totally agree with his words. She pursed her lips and thought about it. She couldn't help looking at Yin Beicheng. He should also have a lot of ears and eyes in the city. Maybe he got some information last night. Yin Beicheng supported his chin with his hand, and his head was nodding uncontrollably from time to time. He was obviously sleepy and didn't notice the flowers were looking at her. How come when he pretends, he's not finished? Mo Shanghua cursed in her heart, then raised her head and said, it should not be so simple. If you want to be imperceptible to anyone, I think these bandits' martial arts should not be weak. They are not ordinary bandits. The important thing is that he was smart enough to choose to start when Yuzhou was the weakest, trying to salvage a lot of money. The princess is right. Mo Jiang seriously thought about his words and said thoughtfully, they should have a very comprehensive plan, but the risk of doing so is very great. Now, every city gate is under martial law. The finance they robbed is likely not to be taken out at all, and it must not be spent in the city. What's the difference between this and holding a pile of scrap metal? Don't worry. How much can be achieved by doing so? Purpose, mo, Shanghua silently read it twice in his heart, and then his eyes suddenly coagulated. General Mo, please make a good statistics of the specific number of people robbed this time, and then give it to me in the list of people robbed. By the way, in the property they lost, be more specific. Just now, Mo Jiang seems to have said that most of his foreign businessmen were robbed. In this case, she has reason to suspect that someone was trying to make a big deal out of it. After all, foreign businessmen are no better than their own people. If they can't give them a satisfactory explanation, I'm afraid that in the end, envoys from other countries will personally mention this matter to the emperor. Yuzhou will happen again. At that time, Yanbei City will be implicated. Ma Jiang seems to this matter also finally thought of this layer. Eyes color micro movement. Wait, yes, this will go to prepare the list. Said he was on a retreat, but just walked 2 steps as if suddenly remembered something and turned around, bent over to the flowers on the street, deeply bowed and saluted. That day's saving grace has not been thanks. Now, Ma Jiang thanks the princess here. It's just a matter of raising hands. General Mo, please get up. Similar to this kind of thanks, I don't know how many flowers I've seen on the street, but I can't see any surprise on my face. I raise my hand to help. Mo Jiang is a serious face of color, life-saving grace, unforgettable. Finished saying, just with to avoid the hand of Mo Shanghua, Wu got up from the body, hugged a fist to walk again a gift, just turned round to stride down. When the people went away, there were only 2 people left in the house, who went to Yanbei City to see Yanbei City yawn again, open their eyes, and look like they just woke up. Your play looks like a drug. It's addictive. Mo Shanghua sat down beside him with a tone of banter. Acting naturally has to be one and the same. Yan Beiqing's lips were slightly crooked, and he laughed a little. How about Princess? What's the chance I gave you? Do you still like it? Yes, I really like it. Mo Shanghua tries to resist the impulse of rolling his eyes and doesn't open his mouth. After a pause, her voice changed, and she became serious again. Now is not the time to say these things. You must have heard the things just now. What's your opinion? Yan Beiqing took the teacup on the table, took off the teacup cover, and played with it gently. While playing with it, he said, First, this matter has been planned for a long time. We only wait for Yuzhou's troops to lose money. Second, these people have taken care of us long ago. Although they haven't left the city, they don't know where the looted treasures are. Third, this person doesn't like me very much otherwise. I won't be able to rob a few more people from neighboring countries and want me to be severely criticized by the emperor. After a pause, he took out a fold from his sleeve and said, Here, you have a look at this. Mo Shanghua took the spy and opened it to see that the above-mentioned thing is that bandits have been frequent in all parts of Yuzhou since these days. Many of the rich businessmen and ordinary people have encountered bandits. Now Yuzhou is in a state of panic. The more you look back at the fold, the more you frown. After reading the fold, your face becomes more and more dignified. Since the rebellion in Anzhou, bandits have been rampant in all parts of Yuzhou. It's not impossible to say that bandits are rampant only because of the sharp reduction of troops. It's just that I always feel that this matter is not as simple as it seems. Tell me about it. Yan Beiqing gathered the casual color on his face, sat up straight, and quietly listened to the deliberation of flowers on the street. Mo Shanghua walked forward slowly, and her mind also turned. It's because bandits are easy to be rampant at this time, and this is the time when it's most easy for people to take advantage of the opportunity. Well, you might as well think about who is the most short of money in the court now. Yanbei City drooped his eyes and thought for a moment. The color of his eyes gradually deepened. These people are really restless for a moment. Seeing Yan Beiqing like this, he must have a candidate in his heart. Seeing this, he said, It seems that the Lord has some eyes. He knows what to do with it. Just now, Mo Jiang has seen this scene. You can go to it. For them, the best way to deal with this matter is to throw the pot directly to the imperial court, whine about the shortage of their troops, and let the imperial court send people to clean up. By the way, they mention a lot about asking for recruits and horses. Thinking of this, Imo Shanghua could not help asking a few more questions. The government has already approved the previous plea for recruiting troops and horses. In principle, it's better for us to recruit troops and horses before the inspectors come. When the inspectors come, we'll just cover up the past with a few tricks. Why can't we hear the news of recruiting troops and horses in the near future? It's not so easy. Yin Beiqing's long and narrow phoenix eyes narrowed slightly and pursed into a straight line. The emperor should also have thought of this layer. The military expenditure we used to go to Yuzhou has not been paid down, even if we want to recruit troops now. This military expenditure will not be paid until the inspectors arrive in Yuzhou. They paid the military expenses for the march in advance. The imperial city promised that they would make up for it later, but now they are not paying it. Naturally, the purpose is obvious. The willow eyebrows on the street were slightly twisted, and the eyebrows were a little cold. The things in the imperial court are really more limited than those in the backyard of this deep house. Leaving Yinbei City, Mo Shanghua is on her way back to the courtyard. The new housekeeper in a mansion runs towards her in a hurry. When she sees her, she seems to see the backbone. Princess is not good. The foreign businessmen who have been robbed in the city are now at the gate of the palace, shouting to let you and the Lord come out quickly to give them an explanation. The flower steps suddenly on the street. Some tired rubbed his eyebrows, said, "General Imo and the Lord. Aren't they here?" General Imo has tried his best to persuade them outside, but they don't listen at all. Lord now, the Lord is resting again. I dare not disturb him. Speaking of the back, the boy's voice was as light as the mosquitoes, for fear that the flowers on the street were angry. If Yin Beicheng could deal with everything in person, he would be a waste firewood lord. Imo Shanghua knew this in his heart. He thought that he might have gone to investigate the bandits by this reason, and naturally he didn't care much. She nodded, put away the tired color on her face, and said, "Come on, take me to have a look." The boy hurried ahead and slowed down to lead the way. At this time, many people gathered at the gate of the palace. Most of the people gathered at the front were dressed in silks and satins, or big-bellied, fat-bellied, or thin and smart. But these people all had something in common. That is, their eyes were full of the businessman's unique shrewd color, and the people around them were also surrounded by circles, chattering and noisy. It's incomparable. Among the people who stand in the front, Wu Cheng is the one who makes the most trouble. The princess arrived. With the little boy's announcement, there was a little silence around, and everyone's eyes immediately followed the sound and looked to the front door of the palace. Imo Shanghua walks out slowly under the gaze of the people. Mao Guang sweeps past several people in front of the king's house, and his eyes finally settle on Wu Cheng. Wu Cheng also stares at the face of Imo Shanghua and looks at it carefully. With a fierce heart, he immediately stands up and yells, "You are the princess of Yuzhou. We are all businessmen from other countries who have been in Yuzhou for a while. Our business here is a symbol of friendship between the two countries. Now, our goods and money have been stolen from you, and we're even living here now. You have to give an explanation." Seeing this, Imo Jiang stood in front of Imo Shanghua and said, "Our general has just explained this to you. We have been checking this matter. After we have found out clearly, we will help you recover your goods and money. Now you just need to go back and wait patiently." As a general guarding Yuzhou, he naturally had to do his duty to protect the princess. But Wu Cheng refused to give in. He said in a bad tone, "Who knows how long you want us to wait? Even if we can wait, can our business wait? Even if we are delayed for a while, we will lose hundreds of silver. Can you afford to pay for it?" After a pause, he said, "What's more, Lao Tsu's money has been robbed by robbers. Now he doesn't even have a place to live. How can he spend it with you here?" As soon as his voice fell, a group of wealthy businessmen who were with him all spoke discontentedly. "That is, what happened in Yuzhou? You must give an explanation today. We have to give you an explanation, or we won't leave today." "Yes, Give me an explanation. Such a group of people with leading faces even said that they would not leave if they didn't give an explanation. Who gave them the advice? The flower on the street frowned slightly, pondered for a while, and said, "Please be calm. I know about your current difficulties, but the bandits suddenly appeared, and there are few clues. It's not easy to find them out quickly. In this way, I immediately sent people to clean up the post house, but all the robbers robbed them. The foreign businessmen who robbed the property can live at will until we find the lost property for you." Apu. Mo Shanghua's voice just fell. Wu Cheng immediately jumped out discontentedly. "What you said is light. Then if you can't catch it back then, even if you catch it back, who will be responsible for the money we delay?" This problem is also the concern of other foreign businessmen. Therefore, when Wu Cheng talks about it, the voice of shouting at the bottom becomes higher and higher. "Listen to me, gentlemen." Mo Shanghua cleared her throat, raised her voice, and said, "I know your concerns, but you also need to think in another place. If you change into us, what should we do? At present, bandits everywhere in Yuzhou are rampant at this time. This matter is far from as simple as you think. It will take a certain time to trace it." Although Yin Beicheng has speedily delivered the memorial to the imperial city, it will take some time to wait for the reply from the imperial city. For the moment, it is still up to Mo Shanghua to suppress it. Obviously, it didn't work. The voice fell, and the uproar at the bottom didn't stop for half a minute. Wu Cheng is not polite, snorted, tone more and more bad. "We understand you. Who will understand us? I don't care our losses. You must be responsible for compensation. Otherwise, I will go back to report this matter to our country officials. At that time, to find you is your emperor." In fact, even if Mo Shanghua really compensated for the loss, he would not stop after he went back. He would definitely report the matter to the officials of the State of the Moon. I'm not sure he could get another compensation. However, this woman he must not let go. He previously lost a lot of money, of course, to a not bad count in her head. Mo Shanghua's eyes suddenly cooled to Wu Cheng. "Light enunciation. Don't have to wait for you to return to the Moon Country. The Lord has already written this matter to the Imperial City. Since you want to wait for the Emperor's will, then I can help you." Smelly girl, a few words almost jumped out of her mouth. Fortunately, the people around him pulled him in time. He just stifled the words behind and turned to say, "Then you say, what are you going to do with it?" You. Smelly girl, a few words almost jumped out of her mouth. Fortunately, the people around him pulled him in time. He just stifled the words behind and turned to say, "Then you say, what are you going to do with it?" "Of course, I will follow your wishes and wait for the Emperor's approval." The flower eyes on the street are quiet, and the skin doesn't smile. This, all of a sudden dissatisfaction, blame eyes have fallen on Wu Cheng. Wu Cheng was so angry that he bit his teeth and said angrily, "Don't believe this woman's words. She's clearly provoking dissension now. I've dealt with her before, but I've suffered a lot." After a pause, he looked at the suspicious foreign businessman with satisfaction, and then continued, "I think you all know that my Wu family got a rare Jianghe a few days ago, which is also the way to Yuzhou. But suddenly a young man jumped out and told me that Jianghe is not worth money here. No one knows about it. He asked me to sell it to him. I was hesitating, and suddenly he came out. There was a man who bought Jianghe at a very high price. I wanted to sell Jianghe to him happily. As a result, after the deal was concluded, the next day, all the gold offered by that man disappeared. Listen to me, big guy. What's this not fairy dance?" was speaking as two peas, and he raised his hand and pointed to the flowers. He said, almost half of a month after he was in Yuzhou, and he never met the teenager and the drug user. He did not meet with the princess yesterday. The appearance of the princess was just like that boy. At the beginning, before seeing the boy, there was a doctor of the Yuzhou, Dr. Lu Zhenglu. I said the same thing. And the Imperial Dr. Lu is also the Imperial Doctor of the Yu Palace. The big guy said that I have wronged the Yu Princess. Hearing this, all the people around burst like boiling water. There is no need to say more about such an obvious thing. It's really ridiculous that a princess in the kingdom of God, which has always been known as the land of rights, should behave like this. The Son of Heaven is guilty of the same crime as the common people. In my opinion, Princess, you should give Brother Wu a statement. Yes, although we are from other countries, we are determined not to be bullied. The people around them were originally watching the crowd with the idea of watching the crowd. Now, when they heard such explosive news, they immediately talked about it all. It seems that all kinds of unbearable remarks are mercilessly revealed. Yenji died of poisoning in the mansion, but it spread out somehow. At the moment, they all turn it out. As a tool to attack Mo Shanghua's malice, they mercilessly hit Mo Shanghua. Although the crowd is noisy, but a few people's words, and Mo Shanghua can still hear clearly enough. When she hears that people are pushing Yunji's death directly on her, she can't help but move her eyebrows, and her eyes are deep. Yin Beiqing clearly told people not to talk about it. Now it's not coming out of the house. How do you know about it outside the house? Qin has been following Mo Shanghua all the time. Seeing this situation, she can't help but step forward and sarcastically says, "If you look the same, you will be a person? There are so many similar people in the world. How can this master not say that others have cheated you? But he has to bite our princess. Is it because the request just put forward by our princess can't meet your request?" As soon as these words came out, the situation turned slightly. Wu Qing couldn't find any words to refute. He simply hummed and turned the topic to another place. The princess's girl is so sharp. I'm afraid she didn't train this little girl well when she saw me yesterday. How can I have the power of foretelling? Mo Shanghua raises her hand and blocks Xinya back. Then her voice turns suddenly with a chill in her voice. "It's you. You were drunk on the street yesterday, and you just recognized me wrong. How can you wake up today and still feel drunk? Is it because you ordered your servants to catch me yesterday and were caught by the city guards and locked you in for a night, and came out then, I'll put the account on my princess?" Yu Wucheng is not a woman who is good at quarreling and refuting. Now, when she is told by the stranger, she suddenly chokes. For a moment, she can't find a reason in her head. A lot of sweat rises on her forehead, especially when he heard that people around him began to turn their opinions to Mo Shanghua. He became more and more anxious. He said incoherently, "Don't quibble. You're the same as me. I was so miserable that day." Lao Tzu, Lao Tzu. He was racking his brains to think about the words in his heart. At that time, he suddenly heard the direction of the flower in the street. Suddenly, a slightly surprised voice came from the girl. "My sister was in the mansion yesterday. How could she be outside the mansion?" Turn Mao, then see Snow Ji is a face surprised of stand at the gate of the palace. Missouri Shanghua, behind, not far place. The flower Mao light on the MO suddenly changes. Can't help squinting eyes to see to Snow Ji. Seeing this, Wu Cheng was overjoyed and quickly said, "You see, this woman can even fake such words. It can be seen that there is not a word of truth in her mouth. We should never believe what she said." Xueji seemed to know that she had said something wrong. She looked at the flowers with a helpless face. "Sister, concubine, is she saying something wrong?" Concubine just came to see what happened. She didn't mean to say that. "Sister, concubine." With that, she quickly raised her skirt and knelt down. "I'm sorry for my words and deeds. I'm in trouble for the princess. I hope the princess will forgive me." Originally, if she didn't say anything, she would find a way to leave quickly. But when she knelt down, she was so submissive and timid in front of so many people. But all the rumors from the outside world were instantly implemented. The reason why rumors are rumors is that no one has seen them. But now Mo Shanghua turns her eyes and looks at Xueji kneeling in front of the door. In her calm eyes, it's just like a little ink. Slowly, she faints with a deep ink color. This Xueji, who was still courting her yesterday, had been unknown before, but now suddenly came up with this trick, which really makes people be taken by surprise. After a long time, she pressed down many thoughts in her heart and helped Xueji up in person. She raised her voice and said, "I went out quietly yesterday. I didn't disturb others. You don't know that it's natural. It's not your fault. This is not a place to watch the excitement. Go back first." I thought Xueji would say something, so as to put her in a more unfavorable direction. But unexpectedly, Shueji nodded obediently, got up and saluted Huafu. Yes, it's all maidservant concubines. Maidservant concubine will leave. This attitude, as if just now, is really just a simple misunderstanding in general. Mo Shanghua didn't say much. When she saw that someone had left, she turned her eyes on Wu Cheng again. She said sarcastically, "Is it me who is sophistry, or you who are making a weak refutation? If you think about it, I really didn't go out of the house. Who did you meet yesterday? As for the truth of what I just said, there are night patrol guards to testify." Wu Cheng heard the speech, quickly jumped out, bit to death, said, "How to testify? That night patrol guard is a general of Yuzhou. You have the right to decide their life and death. Even if they really come, it's your collusion." Qinya couldn't help rolling her eyes and said, "Our princess just said that she has no ability to foretell. Now, Master, you see that there is no reason to refute, so you start to put charges on others casually?" Wu Cheng's face turned red, and he clenched his fist. He seemed to be in a hurry. He said, "Who knows which sentence you said is true and which is false? I can't say that these bandits were arranged by you on purpose to rob our treasure." The flower eyes on the street were cold, and her voice was cold. "You have to think clearly, whether you're a person of the Moon Country or not. It's a capital crime to slander the Emperor's relatives and relatives. If you insist on saying so, the princess doesn't mind handing you over to the government. Let them have a good trial of your crime of slandering the Emperor's relatives and relatives." As soon as the momentum of Mo Shanghua came out, Wu Cheng suddenly couldn't help shrinking. As soon as his legs were soft, he would kneel down uncontrollably. Seeing this, he quickly reached for his pen, but forgot his weight. He immediately fell down with him, and both of them knelt on the ground. Since we know that we are wrong, that's the end of the matter. If we dare to make such a false accusation in the future, the princess will not be spared. The flower on the road drooped and glanced at him. The cold color in the eyes just gathered a little. Wu Cheng is just a paper tiger. He's scared by what Mo Shanghua said just now. Now he doesn't dare to argue. He lowers his head and doesn't dare to say more. With Wu Cheng as an example, the rest of the foreign businessmen have seen the nature of Mo Shanghua. They have coveted each other for a long time, but no one dares to ask about how to compensate. Seeing this, the surrounding people could not help but lower the voice of the discussion. They were afraid that they would lose their temper for a while and arrest them all for slandering the imperial family. Seeing that the scene was under control, Mo Shanghua took a few steps forward, and his eyes swept around among all the foreign businessmen. "You guys, I know what you were worried about. Don't worry. Since you are all in my Yuzhou, I will thoroughly investigate this matter, and I will certainly recover your lost goods, money, and other things for you." Seeing that all the people were still dissatisfied, but they were very angry, she thought a little and said, "If I can't recover your lost property for you, then I will make up for all your losses out of my own pocket." As soon as the words came out, people were a little satisfied. Seeing this, Mo Shanghua turned and looked at Mo Jiang. "General Mo, you should lead them to the post house first. By the way, I want you to count the lost property as soon as possible." "Yes, I will." At the end of the meeting, he answered with a clasp. When he saw that the stranger had gone far away, he turned his eyes to the crowd again. He stepped up to the foreign businessmen and said, "Everyone, please follow me to the post office. If there are people who have not collected their gifts, I will send 2 soldiers to collect them with you. They will lead you to the post office. Is that okay?" Appropriate, appropriate, naturally appropriate. In addition to Wu Cheng, one of the most fierce foreign businessmen responded with a smile. Other people see, also busy, are so general, no longer half of the objection. It's also thanks to Wu Cheng. If he hadn't just made a scene, they would have forgotten that they are now in a foreign land. They just fought against a princess here. If they really annoyed her, they would die in a foreign land. Mo Shanghua is busy to find out the bandits who are rampant in Yuzhou City for the time being, while Yin Beicheng seems to be eating, drinking, and sleeping all day. In fact, he has already gone out of Yuzhou City quietly to explore the bandits that are making trouble elsewhere in Yuzhou. When Mo Jiang sent the statistics of the loss of property of all the robbed people in the city to Mo Shanghua could not help sighing at the dozens of pages of paper. Yuzhou looked very poor on the surface, which was far from the imperial city. But in fact, these were the foreign businessmen who came through here. They were really rich. Most importantly, as she expected, most of the robbers were foreign businessmen. It seems that these people really want to take the opportunity to drag Yin Beiqing into the water and make him denounced by the emperor. However, the most important thing now is to find out where these bandits are hiding in the city as soon as possible. Thinking, she lowered her eyes, took out some of the characteristics of the bandits described by the robbed people given by Mo Jiang, and looked at them carefully. According to most people's description, it is said that the bandits are a group of people dressed in black clothes and wearing black scarves. They can't see their faces at all, and their martial arts seem to be very good. In this way, they can disguise themselves and sneak out of Yuzhou City after robbing goods and money. However, if you rob as many goods as you want to transport, it will be extremely difficult. Qinlin. Thinking of this, Mo Shanghua stood up and called out. Qinlin has been waiting outside. Now listen to Mo Shanghua call his name. Quickly came in. Princess, you order. Go and send a message to General Mo and let him not only strengthen the investigation of those who are going out of the city these days, but also focus on the investigation of foreign businessmen who are not robbed by bandits and are going out of the city, as well as all kinds of people who are going to get married in weddings and funerals. We must not relax a bit. Mo Shanghua took a fold and wrote down what he had just said, and then handed it to Qinlin. By the way, remember to tell General Mo to check in person. Qinlin hurriedly put the folded son into his arms, bent over and gave a salute, and said, I'll do it now. Don't worry, princess, said, risking the night to go in a hurry. As soon as Qinlin talent left, the flower on the street looked awe-inspiring. His eyes were alert. He turned quickly and looked at the window. His right hand subconsciously touched the dagger that Yin Beicheng had given him a few days ago. Small Mo flower, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous, it's me. Under Mo Shanghua's awe-inspiring gaze, Hua Qinliu's dull and lazy voice suddenly rang out at the window, and the tone first rang out. After that, there was a little time to see Hua Qianlu turn over the window and enter. The previous prophet said that he was afraid that Mo Shanghua would move his hand at the moment when he came in. Mo Shanghua saw that it was him who was coming. He relaxed his hand and raised his eyebrows slightly. In the middle of the night, what are you doing? If she remembers correctly, Hua Qianlu should sneak in here for the first time at night, but it's not right that a big man came to her boudoir so late at night. Hua Qianlu looked very familiar. Naturally, he found a stool and sat down, as if he had been here for thousands of times. The boy in Beijing often sneaks in through the window in the middle of the night. With that, he seemed to realize what he had said. He quickly raised his hand and patted his forehead. Oh, I forgot that layer. I made a slip of tongue. I'll punish you to drink this cup of tea. Mo Shanghua glanced at his dry lips without hesitation. I'm afraid it's true that I'm thirsty. Smart. Flowers and willows do not have the consciousness of being torn down, so they will accept them with a smile. What on earth are you here for? Mo Shanghua saw that he was carrying a cup of tea and drank it all. He looked at the sky outside and asked again. Hua Qianlu didn't answer her. She drank the last mouthful of tea in the teacup and then turned her eyes around in the room. Your room is good, but it's small and dark. After making such comments, he turned his eyes again and fell on the paper that Flowers had just put on the table. He took it up and looked at it, and immediately Tut-Tut said, I've heard that the foreign businessmen in the city were robbed, and today they came to the palace, forcing the princess to promise. If they can't recover all the things they lost, they will pay for compensation out of their own pocket. Tut-Tut, now let's see if you really want to pay for the things on this list. I'm afraid you'll lose everything. Mo Shanghua took the list out of his hand and said faintly, I won't pay for it. I'm not afraid of it. It's not difficult to say that it's a difficult matter. As long as we make a careful investigation, we will be able to catch the robbers. No matter how hard it is, we will be able to recover the looted property of those foreign businessmen, and we will not really have to pay for it. Hua Qianlu shakes her head and magically takes out a wooden box from somewhere and puts it in front of Mo Shanghua. In my opinion, it's better to be prepared. If not, you really have to pay for it. You don't have so much silver on you. How can you live with the face of Princess Yu? Mo Shanghua looked at him suspiciously, then raised his hand to open the wooden box in front of him. I saw that this seemingly ugly wooden box was filled with dazzling gold, and each piece was full of gold. The flower on the street suddenly showed some surprise, some unbelievable. Can't help but look at the flower willow with half faith. Flower boy? Cabinet leader? Don't you just climb the window when you hit the head? How suddenly hands so generous? This is a firm loss business, Hua Qianlu often says that he is a businessman. He has seen Hua many times. Hua Qianlu is a well-known money collector. No matter what he does, he has to go through the abacus first. He was just a little more generous 2 days ago. How can he be so generous today that he is willing to give away the yellow gold at will? I don't think that Brother Beicheng is busy these days. I really can't spare time to take care of you. With my friendship with him, I naturally need to take care of him more. Hua Qianlu took out the folding fan, which was no longer around his waist. He held the tail of the fan in one hand and the top of the fan in the palm of the other hand. His eyes glanced away. On a regular day, flowers and willows like to tap their fans in their palms. Today, they just hold them in their palms. It's really suspicious. The well-like eyes of Hua Yu Jing in the street fell on Hua Qianlu, as if they could see through him. Hua Qianlu, money is not just something outside your body. You are so generous today. Surely it's not just such a simple reason. She stared at Hua Qianlu and thought about it carefully. Then she said, "It shouldn't be that you didn't get the money from a good place. You brought it to me to sell the stolen goods." The folding fan in Hua Qianlu's hand knocked lightly in the palm of his hand and said, "Yes, it is not." Mo Shanghua eyebrow heart suddenly jumps. Sat down opposite him. "What do you mean?" Hua Qianlu turned over and opened the folding fan with a sound of schwa and said, "Do you still remember when you designed to cheat Wu Cheng into descending the grain?" Naturally, I remember that it is because of this that I feel so sorry for Wu Cheng today. Mo Shanghua nodded and looked at the wooden box in front of him for a long time. Then he flashed in his mind. I remember that Yin Moli disguised himself and wanted to get the grain. Finally, Wu Cheng was moved by the gold in the box. It was just as if the gold disappeared that night after it came to Wu Cheng's hands. It was also because of this that Wu Cheng held a grudge. After a pause, she raised her eyes and looked at Hua Qianlu. "I always thought that Yin Moli had done this immorality, but I didn't expect that it was you. It's just you. It's just that Wu Cheng put this account on my head." Hearing the words behind the flowers in the street, Hua Qianlu raised his hand and touched his nose with a guilty conscience and said bitterly, "This is also self-defeating. I wanted that Wu Cheng to record this in Yanbei City, but I didn't expect that Wu Cheng was so incompetent that he couldn't find anyone. He also recorded this kind of thing in a woman of yours. It's really hateful and hateful." Speaking of the back, he showed a bit of injustice on his face, as if he really held injustice for the flowers on the street. Mo Shanghua couldn't help but look at him, but he didn't really care about anything. The pavilion leader is not only good at business, but also increasingly good at eloquence and acting. He is really powerful. He really deserves to be the famous pavilion leader of Chenghuan. Easy to say, easy to say. Hua Qianlu did not see half a cent of modesty. On the contrary, the corners of his lips stirred up a smile. In fact, this young master of gold is not trying to find a way to follow him. That Wu Cheng is also useless. As 2 peas, he took out a piece of gold from his sleeve and handed it to the flower. "What you see now is the one that has been sent to the boy. This piece is left behind before it is rebuilt. You see, there are official seals on it. If it is so simple, it will leave the official seal mark on it. But it is just like a batch of tribute silver thrown out of the court before it was there. If Wu Cheng takes it seriously, I'm afraid he'll suffer another prison disaster. I'm not sure. He'll lose his head. Mo Shanghua took the gold handed by Hua Qianlu and looked at it carefully. His eyes narrowed slightly. No wonder he was so generous. It turned out that even if he had planned, the gold would come back to him in another form. It's really cruel. The folding fan in Hua Qianliu's hand is habitually gently shaking, with a smile on his face. If he is not cruel, how can he sit in the position of kingling now? After a pause, his face returned to the usual smile. Okay, you can simply take the gold. Anyway, it's also from Yin Moli's hands. It's just the compensation he calculated for you. It turns out that your Chenghuan pavilion was burned by him. What's the reason that you should give it to me instead of making up half of it? Mo eyebrows gently stirred up. After all, you are so generous, or some do not make sense. When did you talk so much nonsense? Flower Thousand Willow Mao Guang Shan Shan. Half is helpless, half is a bit irritable. Seeing this, Mo Shanghua knew that he was afraid that he would not be able to get rid of it. So he simply took the gold and said, "Look at you. If I don't take it, I'm afraid you'll stay. In that case, I'll take it. Thank you very much. Easy to say polite." Hua Qianlu said with a smile. By the way, I'm also exploring the bandits. When I get the news, I'll send someone to send a message. Don't worry. What's the matter with the flower willows? Is it that they have changed their disposition and are ready to be a great good man who has accumulated good deeds so that they can have a good life in the next life? The flower heart on the street was thinking about it, but he saw that Hua Qianlu had already stood up and walked out. He said, "It's late at night. I should go after my son's explanation. If not, Brother Beicheng will have to peel me when he comes back." When he got to the window, he could not help sighing again. My son, the Lord of Chenghuan Pavilion, is now reduced to the point of going through the window. Although the mouth said so, but the action did not stop. A flip will jump out of the window, no trace. Weirdo. Mo Shanghua looks at Hua Qianlu and talks to himself for a long time. At last, he leaves the window reluctantly. His ruddy and full lips can't help saying a few words, but there is not much emotional change on his face. He only feels that Yin Beicheng is strange, but he has been together for a long time. In fact, it's not very complicated. It's Hua Qianlu who always smiles and speaks very well, son. But in fact, he is the real weirdo. The next day, the sky turned white, and Mo Shanghua was still resting on her bed. Yesterday, in front of the people, Xueji, who let Mo Shanghua be convicted, took off her hairpin early and knelt outside the courtyard. Qinya is called over by the little girl who works. She looks at Xueji kneeling in front of the hospital. She doesn't look well when she thinks of what happened yesterday. "Snow Lady, what are you doing? Don't let people see. She thinks our princess bullied you." Xueji just dropped her eyes, but she couldn't see any anger on her face. "I made a big mistake yesterday, so I should apologize to the princess. Now I just kneel down. If I just knelt down for a moment, I'm not sincere. I don't want to wake up the princess at this time. I'd rather I kneel down for a while than disturb her sleeping. If you don't want to disturb the princess, you won't come at this time." Qinya turns around and looks at Xueji, lowers her voice and murmurs, then goes back to wake up Mo Shanghua. If she was so disgusted with Xueji because of yesterday's events that she wanted her to kneel down for a while for fear that she would spread it out and not know how to say it again, Qinya was just thinking of this layer, and then she calmed down. But if she was the former one, or the girl next to her, she would certainly do the same as the former one. "Princess, princess." Qinya, holding a candlestick, went to the bedside of the flower in the street and called softly. Just now she called twice, and the sleeping Mo Shanghua opened her eyes. Subconsciously, she went over Qinya and looked at the sky outside the window. Seeing that it was still dark, her eyebrows could not help but frown. How come it's so early, but there's news from General Mo? She remembers that the gate should have been opened at this time. It is not impossible for Mo Jiang to catch the bandits at this time. Qinya put the candlestick on the table next to the bed, pulled up the curtain on the bed and hung it well, and said, "Now it's not bright, and the girls have just got up. How can they spread the news so quickly? It's Xueji." She knelt at the gate of the hospital early in the morning. I'm afraid that she'll have to kneel for a long time to provoke people's tongue, so I have to call you up quickly. Imo Shanghua stood up with her bed in her hands, raised her hand and rubbed her temple, tried to raise her unconsciousness, and open her mouth a little vaguely. What is she doing kneeling here? Chinya is hanging a curtain, smells speech, can't help but droop a glance at the face of the flowers on the street. See her eyes blurred, can't help but say, Princess, look at you. So disturbed, no spirit. Even the brain is not very clear. Imo Shanghua shakes her head, gets up to put on her shoes, goes to the screen alone, takes the clothes hanging in front of the screen, and starts to put them on her one by one. She doesn't answer Chinya's words. Chinya's long been used to getting up in the morning and likes to clean up by herself. She simply continues to do her own work, bending over to help her fold the quilt, and continues. She said that she asked you for yesterday's matter, but she also took off her hairpin to be ready to go and didn't use any powder. She looks very sincere, but the maid thinks that she clearly wants to trap you in injustice. As for her hair bun, she took a hairpin and put it on. After she made sure that it would not fall off, she called someone to come in and prepare something to wash. After washing, she felt that her head was clear. Turning her eyes, she took a look at Chinya. She walked out directly. She was trying to make friends with me a few days ago, but suddenly yesterday. I think today's affair must be not simple. It's hard to figure out the purpose. Chinya followed him for a long time, but she had to bulge her cheek and said, I don't care if there's so many people here. If anyone hurts you, I will decide that she is not a good person. Imo Shanghua pursed her lips and walked in the direction directed by the girl. As expected, she was kneeling there with a straight body and a quiet face. She didn't know whether it was because she didn't put on makeup or because she was weak. She couldn't see half the blood color. The complexion is so bad, and she has to kneel down. Shueji is really sincere. Imo Shanghua walks slowly to Shueji and opens her mouth lightly. As soon as Shueji saw that the visitor was a stranger, her hands, which had been placed on her belly, immediately lifted up and made a big gift. She put her palms on the ground and her forehead on the back of her hands and said, Shueji, my maid, said something wrong in front of the people yesterday and made a big mistake. She came here to ask the princess to forgive me. Just ask the princess to forgive me and accept my apology. The flower on the street lowered her eyes, looked down at Shueji kneeling on the ground, and said, I remember that you didn't know what you said yesterday. How come today's savvy suddenly became so high? So you figured it out. Before she was pardoned by Imo Shanghua, Shueji stuck her head tightly on the back of her hand and never got up. I was stupid yesterday. I went back to think about it for a long time. Later, I was reminded by the little girl around me. I just knew how much wrong I had done. Now I think about it. I'm really ashamed, and I have no face to see the princess. Imo Shanghua and immediately reply, but drooping eyes light looking at Fu on the ground of Shueji, a pair of quiet eyes can't see right and wrong. Shueji seems to feel the eyes of flowers on the street, and her body trembles slightly, but she still bites her teeth and never gets up. Get up first. Seeing her like this, Imo Shanghua said slowly, I said yesterday that it's not your fault, so I didn't intend to pursue anything. You insist on this, and I can't say anything. Now, you have done everything you want to do. You can go back. Princess, yeah. Snow G soft voice wave voice thanks. This just trembled way of stand up. When get up, the body still shook to shake. Chinya turned her eyes and looked at the flowers on the street. Seeing that she didn't speak, she thought about it in her heart and said, I'm afraid that Lady Shue's body is not good after kneeling for a while. In that case, I'll send someone to send my wife back. I'm all right. I just knelt down for a long time. At first I felt a little dizzy. Seeing this, Shueji just shook her head slightly and then looked at the flowers on the street. My concubine disturbed the purity of the princess early in the morning. I think the princess hasn't used breakfast yet. When I came out, I specially asked someone to prepare some. It's better for the concubine to make do with it first. It's as an apology for my concubine. With that, he turned to the maid behind him and told her to go down. The maid hurriedly went down to prepare. After a while, several maidservants came in with exquisite breakfast. Qin Yafeng just wanted to refuse for Mo Shanghua, so she raised her hand and made a hissing gesture to her. It seems that Xueji is sincere and has been ready in the morning. In that case, I'm not good to blow your face. In this way, you will bring all the meals into my hall. Xueji must not have eaten, so stay and use them together. Snow G smell speech. Half cent refuse, also have no. Yes, thank princess. The food is put on the table one by one. It can be seen that every dish is carefully prepared. Each dish is delicate and light. It meets the standard of breakfast and is exquisite and delicious. Xueji really has a good heart. Mo Shanghua Mao Guang swept the food on the table one by one and praised it with a light complexion. Xueji just covered her lips and laughed. Then she stood up and began to introduce the food on the table one by one. The flower on the street just looks at it lightly and quietly looks at Xueji's words and deeds with Yuguang. Xueji's words and deeds are very appropriate, and her manners are also very dignified. The whole person has recovered to the way she used to be punished together with Mo Shanghua, and no abnormality can be seen. Just as he was about to exit, he saw Qin Lin rush in and salute several people. Then he went to the flower side of the street and whispered a few words in her ear. The look inside the flower eyes on the street suddenly changed. There was no longer the leisurely state before. He said in a low voice, "Let them close the gate first and then wait for me to pass." Qin Lin nodded and then went down in a hurry. Qin Lin just went down. And Mo Shanghua stood up and looked at Xueji. "I have something important to deal with. Xueji, if you haven't finished, you can continue to eat here. You can go after it." "I'm afraid that's not right." Xueji put down her chopsticks blankly. "The princess hasn't used a few mouthfuls yet. Why is she in such a hurry? If there's anything wrong, it's better to finish breakfast first." At the end of the speech, she suddenly raised her hand to cover her throat. Her face was very painful. Then she vomited a mouthful of blood, and then she became unconscious. Madam, what's the matter with you?" Seeing Xueji fall to the ground, her servant girl quickly squats on her side and looks at the flowers in panic. "Princess, I heard that you're good at medicine. Please come and see my wife. She must have been poisoned by others. Please help her. At present, people fall on themselves, and the flowers in the street can't get rid of the relationship. Now that people have become like this, it's the maid who doesn't ask her, and she has to save her." However, what Qin Lin had just come to inform couldn't be delayed at all. "It's all right. Now we have to focus on this side." Thinking of this, Mo Shanghua can only temporarily put the matter aside, squat in front of Xueji, raise her hand to touch her pulse. This way. "It's really poisoning. Qinya, go to find 2 people to carry her to the side room first." Simply, it's not an obscure poison. Although it's fatal at the moment, its effect is not much worse than that of those who stop at the sight of blood. Once you get rid of it, it won't be very difficult for her. Yes. Seeing this, Qinya immediately ignores her preconceptions about Xueji and calls several strong boys to bring a stretcher. Then 2 stronger moms put Xueji on the stretcher and then do so again. This is the only way to carry Xueji to the bed in the side room. After Xueji was placed on the bed, Mo Shanghua felt her pulse again and confirmed the poison in Xueji's body. After thinking about it seriously, she simply used the fastest way to expel the toxin. Of course, in order not to cause any trouble, the whole process, Xueji's girl, Qinya, and others are there. Moreover, they're also under the orders of Mo Shanghua. They start to make hot water basin by basin and prepare sweat towels and other things. Mo Shanghua first uses a silver needle to protect Xueji's heart, and then takes a pill of kudu pill for her. She directly takes out a dagger from her waist, takes one of Xueji's hands, cuts a small wound on each of her 5 fingers with a dagger, and pricks a silver needle a little deeper. But a moment later, she sees that she has cut her finger, but there is no trace of blood as the wound suddenly beginning to bleed, and the blood is not very red, but black visible to the naked eye. It seems that it is the toxin that Mo Shanghua just tried to force out of her body. She quickly takes a copper basin from Chinya's hand, which hasn't been heated. With one hand, she pushes the black blood from Shueji's 5 fingers. With the other hand, she puts the copper basin down, and the poisonous blood from Shueji's fingertips drops into the copper basin. I'm going to close down for a long time after the wound has coagulated again. When the poison was almost discharged, she took the bandage and carefully wounded around the wound of each finger. After that, he did the same thing in Shueji's other hand. When the wound was almost wrapped up, she said, "Well, now your wife's poison is discharged. You can take it back to your yard, right? Remember to pass on Imperial Dr. Liu to treat your wife well." Princess, you can't go. Mo Shanghua hasn't gone 2 steps. Shueji's servant girl rushes up. Putong kneels down in front of her and blocks her way. "Princess, there's something wrong with our wife's poison. If you don't help us to explore now, I'm afraid it's too late. The last trace will be wiped clean by the people after the scene. Then our wife will bear it in vain after all. Princess, you must make up your mind for my wife." Mo Shanghua looks at the servant girl kneeling in front of her. Her eyebrows can't help but jump. "I have more important things to deal with now, and I can't delay. In this way, Chinya is my personal servant girl, and it's good to do things first class on weekdays. I'll leave her to you and let her help you explore." The little girl didn't move. Her eyes were red, and she cried, "Princess, I know you are worried. It's not that I don't believe in Sister Chinya, but it's just that this matter is not trivial. If it's left to Miss Chinya, don't mention the maid, even the lady, she won't be at ease. Princess, please do me a favor and help Our Lady make the decision." With that, he bent down and bowed down, with his forehead firmly on the ground. When the little girl came to ask her to treat Shueji, she was just like this. I think she was used to this move, and now she is perfect. I have told you that Chinya was cultivated by me, and her ability is absolutely trustworthy, but you are still so entangled. You know, what I'm going to do now is very important. If one is not good, the whole palace will be involved. If it is really delayed, is it you or I who are the culprit? That small wench, immediately scared complexion of white, arrived at the forehead of the ground to immediately give out a few Finsu sweat. Maidservant dare not." Mo Shanghua ignored the little girl and looked aside at Chinya. "Chinya, this matter must be done well. If you really can't, go and invite the side imperial concubine. The implication is that if you can't deal with it, you'll bring Nanhe to deal with the mess. I believe Nanhe doesn't dare to do anything at this juncture." "Yes, Princess, don't worry. I'll do it well. I won't let the people behind the scenes get away with it." Chinya slightly bent her knees and said, "No matter how bad it is, I believe that the South Imperial concubine will be able to deal with everything." Mo Shanghua didn't seem to recognize the meaning of her words. She nodded and strode out. "Qin Lin, go to prepare the horse quickly." "Yes." Qin Lin ran all the way to catch up with her, then bypassed her and hurried to the stables. When Qin Lin brought the horse, Mo Shanghua drove the horse directly towards the gate of the city. To avoid disturbing the people on the road, she deliberately bypassed the prosperous area of the center and chose some roads with few people. However, when we got to the gate, we were still a little late. Originally, Qin Lin told her that Mo Jiang had found a group of people who were responsible for funerals at the gate of the city, but they looked very suspicious. They had been stopped for a while and asked her to go and have a look. Unexpectedly, as soon as she arrived, she saw that the gate of the city had been completely destroyed. At this time, a group of soldiers were gathered at the peaceful gate of the city. They were fighting with a group of people dressed in white filial piety. Not far away, there were 2 black painted coffins. The coffins were half open, and we could not see what was inside. Judging from the casualties of the 2 sides, it should have been a short time since the fight began. Nearby, people all fled toward the center of the city, so it was convenient for Mo Shanghua to act. Thinking about it, Mo Shanghua went forward and knocked down one of the people dressed in filial piety to the ground, grabbed his sword and knocked down Mo Jiang not far away. At that time, Mo Jiang was fighting with one of the people in filial piety. Yu Guang caught a glimpse of the flowers on the street. His eyes could not help expressing some doubts. Princess, did you come alone? At present, everyone can't get rid of themselves and can't ask for reinforcements. Yuzhou is not a small city. It doesn't take long for the patrolling officers and soldiers to find out what happened at the gate of the city. Therefore, Mo Jiang places hope on Mo Shanghua. Mo Shanghua, on the one hand, guarding against his back, and on the other hand, fighting and pestering with a man, smelling the words, did not forget to take out his spare time, and said, "There are some small situations in the house. I'm in a hurry. I forgot to lead the soldiers. Let's resist for a while. They can't escape. After all, they're in Yuzhou City. No matter how capable they are, it is difficult for them to escape." As soon as he was beaten back by the hand of the stranger, the bloody man retreated to one of the people who was covered with sackcloth. His eyes looked at her like a poisonous snake and said, "Head, this woman is really powerful. She hurt many of our brothers when she came, and now time can't be delayed, otherwise we can't leave." The man who was called the head wiped the bloodstain on his face and glanced at the flowers on the street. His eyes suddenly narrowed. "It seems that she should be the new princess of you in Yuzhou." "Head, what do you mean? Get ready and get out of here." The man didn't answer. He just left the sentence and rejoined the war circle. Then he saw the man who had vomited blood nodded and suddenly flew into the two coffins. After a while, he took out two sealed wine pots from them. It just seemed that they were not filled with wine. When people from the same camp nearby saw this, two more flew over. One of them took out two small boxes from the coffin, and the other took out two jars. When everyone's reaction was not enough, the flower on the street glanced at this scene, then turned his head and looked at the half-open gate behind him, and immediately said, "Close the gate! Close the gate quickly!" As soon as the words fell, I saw a wine jar flying in front of me. It was the wine jar that those people had just taken out. Want to dodge, already too late. See this, Mo Shanghua had to raise the long sword in the hand in a hurry, resist to go up. The wine jar broke into pieces in the air, and the broken porcelain pieces flew out and did not fall on her face at all. However, the liquid gushing out of the wine jar made her drench completely without accident, and the bun hanging on the back of her head immediately drooped down, and the broken hair in front of her forehead was also wet on her cheek, which was particularly uncomfortable. However, Mo Shanghua is not in the mood to care about these. At present, the smell from her nose directly changes her face. Her eyes turn to the coffins. Sure enough, the remaining wine jars have been smashed to two coffins by those people. Then they set fire to the origami and threw it to the two coffins. The two coffins were immediately engulfed by the tongue of fire, like extremely flammable wadding. Looking at Mo Jiang, seeing that the two coffins were ignited, his face changed a lot, but he didn't give an order. Seeing this situation, Mo Shanghua suddenly understood it. Sure enough, the two coffins were not corpses, but the stolen property. The most valuable things should have been taken away by them, but the rest of them should not be cheap goods. After all, they robbed too many things that day, and what they could bring out must be valuable things. Now that they have set fire, they're trying to embarrass them. Is it to fight the fire or to arrest people? General Mo, order people to close the gate first. Hurry up. Weighing for a long time, Mo Shanghua gritted his teeth, looked at the city gate that had not been closed behind him, and hurriedly called to Mo Jiang. Mo Jiang heard the speech and had no time to think too much, so he quickly ordered, "Listen to the arrangement of the princess. Close the gate quickly. No one can let go." Mo Shanghua only thinks about these things, but she doesn't know that someone has set fire to her and then throws it behind her. The origami is a small object. It's extremely light. At this time, she is concerned about other things. Naturally, she won't notice it. The origami will be less than half a finger behind her in 100 years. Even the tiny Mars has begun to jump. At that time, she just realized that something was wrong behind her. Subconsciously, just about to turn a check and avoid, the body just about to move, then suddenly fell into her embrace. Yin Beiqing's broad sleeve robe threw hard. and the crease fell directly on the ground, while the flower on the street fell safely in his arms, without any injury. On the ground, there was some kerosene that had just been spilled from the wine jar, which instantly ignited a tiny flame, but because there was no combustibles, it went out again. Mo Shanghua's Mao Guang glanced at the place where the Huazhizi fell, and then he just glanced at Yin Beicheng. Yin Beicheng was worried just now. As soon as she saw it, he gathered his worried color. He sniffed the wet forehead and hair of flowers on the street and immediately looked disgusted. It's really smelly. The special feeling that the Chinese side had just poured on the flower girl in the street suddenly disappeared. Before he could get angry, Yin Beicheng suddenly leaned back, as if he couldn't hold her, and fell to the ground in embarrassment. "Oh, you are so heavy a woman." Yin Beicheng cushioned the bottom of the flower for Mo and covered his back as if he had been smashed. Ouch, ouch, ouch. With Yin Beicheng's martial arts, what was the fall? Mo Shanghua turned her eyes and looked at the side of her body. Sure enough, she saw that Mo Jiang was not far away from her. She raised her voice while fighting and said, "Are you okay with me? No problem." Mo Shanghua answered and quickly got up from Yin Beicheng and pulled him by the way. Yin Beicheng didn't come by himself. He also brought a lot of people to see how he was dressed. They should be the soldiers in the palace. Although they were soldiers, they were not too weak. Knowing that they might make trouble when they came, they went straight to the coffins. Some of them took off their clothes and beat on the coffins. It's just a waste of time. Go to the people's houses nearby and borrow some water. Mo Shanghua saw this and hurriedly came forward and gave a loud order. Different from the soldiers in the city, the soldiers were naturally obedient to the words of Mo Shanghua. Hearing the words, they quickly spread out and went to knock on the door of the closed door near the city gate. The common people inside are very afraid. After knocking for a while, no one opens the door. Mo Shanghua is still leading the troops to stop them and has no energy to manage them. Yanbei City was standing in the distance. Just as he wanted to find a way, he saw flowers and willows. He didn't know when they would appear here. He was holding the folding fan he used to hold, gently fanning in front of his chest, followed by two maids. The whole person looked very lazy and leisurely, as if the place they were going to now was not a place where swords and swords were singing, but a place where smoke and willows were flourishing. When Yin Beicheng saw that he was coming, the light in his eyes flashed for a moment, so he reclined against the wall and waited for him to come. When Hua Qianlu saw him like this, he knew that he was not in a hurry. He only ordered the two maids behind him to continue walking leisurely. At the command of Hua Qianlu, the two maids trotted to the soldiers who were knocking on the door with their skirts. They took out a silver ticket from their hands and stuffed it in along the crack of the door. They whispered, "We are not bad people. We are from the palace. There's a fire outside. We just want to borrow some water." As soon as the words came down, the door that had been closed was opened, and the soldiers were able to enter and fight the fire. On the other side of the street, I saw that the gate was about to be completely closed, but I didn't want to. Seeing this, the remaining people wanted to do the same thing again, but this time, what they wanted to burn was the gate. Mo Shanghua and others just stopped them. If they don't pay attention, they let them wait for the opportunity to open the city gate and run out of the city. When the rest of them saw this, they all resisted and ran away. Most of them escaped at the cost of being seriously injured. As soon as she was about to take Mo Jiang to catch up with her, Hua Qianlu blocked her with a folding fan and said, "Don't chase the poor. They can't run away. You better take a look at some of them." It's true that the city of Yuzhou is so strictly guarded that they are now exposed. As long as they are exposed, it's not easy for them to escape from Yuzhou. Smell speech. Mo Shanghua this just ordered a nod. The long sword in the hand throws down, quickly walks toward Mo River that side. At that time, Mo Jiang was catching two living people and preparing to inquire about Mo Shanghua. When he saw her coming, he was about to report it. Unexpectedly, the two people suddenly vomited blood and died. There's poison hidden on the teeth. It seems that they're all dead men who will die. Emo Shanghua broke off one of the people's mouths and looked at it carefully. Her eyebrows suddenly frowned slightly. Before thinking for a moment, Yin Beiqing suddenly took her hand back, held it in his own hand, and immediately said, I haven't managed it well, so I want to think about it first. People are dead. What's the use of looking at it? Then he took off his coat and wrapped it in the wet flowers. I'll go back to the bath with the king as soon as possible. It stinks to death. Yes, I know. The flower on the street took a look at Yin Beicheng, took his hand back, and gathered his clothes. Then he looked back at Mo Jiang and Hua Qianlu. It's not convenient to talk here. Let's go back to the palace first. Ma Jiang was originally a general of Yuzhou. Naturally, he had no reason to refuse. It's because after the general has dealt with it well, he will go. It's Hua Qianlu who just broke the money to help, but now he suddenly turned his face and said, don't do it. I'm just here to join the fun. I think you'd better give me back the money I just broke. As he spoke, he had already collected the folding fan, and his slender 10 fingers gently calculated, I just wanted 3 families, one of which had 5 taels of silver, and the employment fee that my son came all the way to help. How could it take 10 taels, a total of 25 taels, and the prince and princess should not be able to default? Yin Beicheng, who had known Hua Qianlu for a long time, laughed with him. Brother Hua, I always go to your place to have wine. How can you be so clear with me? As far as the matter is concerned, I've never done business at a loss. Hua Qianlu opened the folding fan in his hand and shook it gently in front of his chest. A pair of fox's eyes were full of smile. Can't you still want to break the debt? Of course not. Yin Beicheng suddenly took out 25 liang from his sleeve and gave it to Hua Qianlu. Hua Qianlu took the silver, turned around, and gave it to the maid behind him. She said with a smile, the Lord is still so cheerful. If you have time, you should go to my son's Chenghuan pavilion more often. The words were clearly to Yin Beicheng, but his eyes looked at the flowers on the street as if he meant something. And Mo Shanghua just did not understand the general, pale face, cannot see anger. There are important things to deal with in the house. If there is nothing to spend, child, we will go back first. Wait a minute. Seeing this, Hua Qianlu suddenly opened her mouth and stopped her. Her lips were still in a habitual radiance. In recent days, the bandits have been making a lot of noise, and the business of Chenghuan Pavilion is not good. Therefore, I have to say a few words now. After a pause, he said, although I don't know much about martial arts, I don't know much about those people just now. I was hurt and took away things that I shouldn't have taken away. As long as the prince and the princess take strict precautions at the gate, besides strengthening their hands, for example, painting some portraits, it doesn't need to be more like a man. I guess. He didn't go on saying the following words, but the fox's eyes picked up slightly, a very treacherous look, a living fox-like. Mo Shanghua instantly understood his meaning, and could not help but slightly hook his lips, and said with a smile, you are worthy of being a businessman. You are so flexible in your stomach. When Yin Beicheng saw this, he couldn't help laughing and said, Brother Hua is stuck in nobody's pile day by day. Naturally, he can't be short of Wawa Cha Chang. Hua Qianlu didn't retort. She narrowed her eyes and said with a habitual smile, it's a pity, Brother Beicheng. Looking at you, you are very honest recently. I don't come to Chenghuan Pavilion very much. Is it possible that the rumors in the city will come true? After a pause, he seemed to suddenly lose interest and walked around the 2 men towards the city, saying, this morning meal is useless. It's time to go back and have a rest. And Mo Jiang stood in the hall and said with a bad face, the coffin is full of medicinal materials, silk, porcelain, and other things. Although the fire has been put out, most of those things can't be taken. Only a small part is left. They took all the money away. With that, he turned around and gave orders to the people behind him, and immediately someone carried everything in. Batch after batch of silk and satin were carried in, and in an instant more than 10 wooden cases were placed. In the open alley, most of the silk and satin were burned, or only some fragments were left. As for the medicinal materials, only ashes were left. The porcelain was still in good condition, but it was a pity that they were blackened by thick smoke and were useless. Mo Shanghua got up and went to the middle of the wooden box. After looking at each wooden box one by one, she frowned deeply. It seems at this time, I really want to break some money. After all, she had promised those foreign businessmen before, so naturally she had to do what she said. Yin Beiqing also came forward and picked up a piece of brocade with burnt corners. He could not help sighing. These are good things. It's a pity that they have been destroyed like this. Mo Jiang raised his eyes to look at their posture, thought about it, and said, "The noise of the city gate is not small. It must have spread to those rich merchants now. I don't know how the prince and princess plan to end." The end? The end is not easy. On weekdays, Yin Beicheng, who didn't know much about such important matters, suddenly opened his mouth. "My king has already given a discount to my father. At that time, my father will send someone to solve this matter. As for these losses, they should also be paid together with military expenditure. You don't have to worry." His words and deeds are very relaxed, as if the matter is very simple. As for those foreign businessmen, just send them out when they come back. This seemingly casual words, Mo Jiang thought carefully, but really feel a bit of truth, cannot help nodding. The Lord is reasonable. If so, also save us a lot of trouble. Mo Shanghua also nodded and looked sideways at Yin Beicheng. I didn't expect that Wang Yi had a time to open his mind. The word Kaiqiao was so heavy that it seemed to mean something else. Yin Beicheng chuckled. His eyes were clear and bright, but his face seemed confused. I used to be just too troublesome to care about these things. Just then, Qin Lin came in a hurry. "Tell the prince and princess that Master Wu'er of Yuegwa has brought a group of people to come here. He said that he heard about the gate of the city and knew that everything had been found. He came to get his own things." Mo Shanghua and Yin Beicheng looked at each other, and then saw Mo Shanghua open mouth. "Don't ask them to come in. Tell them things as they inquired about the general, but don't worry. I and the Lord have been counting the damage. Will soon be the compensation." After a pause, she added, "If the compensation doesn't suit their wishes, let them wait for the news of the imperial city." Qin Lin answered, but he didn't go down immediately. If they still don't want to, they will stay at the door like that day. What should they do? Seeing this, before the flowers on the street opened their mouths, Yin Beicheng said with indifference, "If you have the courage to break through, you may as well. If you don't dare, then they don't want to go, so let them continue to guard. The king and the princess won't lose a piece of meat." Seeing this, Qin Lin took another look at the flowers on the street. Seeing that he had no objection, he went down. "General Mo, I've been bothering you to investigate at every exit of Yuzhou these days." Seeing that people left, Hua's eyes fell on Mo Jiang again. "General Mo, you have to guard every pass in Yuzhou these days. By the way, the words of young Master Hua were good. You should draw some portraits. You don't have to be multi-directional. You only need to see that you are a man. First, how can they remember the faces of those people when they are in such a hurry? Second, those people will not dare to go forward and look at them carefully after seeing them. If they only look at them from a distance, they'll be very flustered. So, just to frighten them." But Mo Jiang immediately answered and pondered for a while. Fong said, "I heard that the young lady Hua has always been indifferent to the world except drinking and having fun. But today, all of a sudden, isn't the princess worried about cheating?" Seeing the color of doubt hidden at the bottom of his eyes, I can't help coagulating a little spirit in the flower heart of the stranger. It seems that Mo Jiang's heart has been suspicious. However, in terms of familiarity, Yin Beicheng, who lingers day by day in Qinhuan Pavilion, is more qualified to answer this question. Yin Beicheng went to a cup of tea and took a sip of it. Then he said, "Didn't General Mo listen to his explanation? There are many people in the city who have been robbed by bandits, which has affected his business. If he is my king, naturally he doesn't want to lose money because of this. Besides, he just has a little idea. What's the doubt, yes?" Mo Jiang frowned and thought for a long time, then said, "What the Lord said is reasonable. It's the end general who is narrow. The end general will give orders first. No one can see, his eyes light across a dark light, still with some doubt. See Ma Jiang go down. Yanbei City Mao light this just fall on Mo Shanghua body again. Dislike extremely will she look again. Love imperial concubine. If you don't go to bath, this king will dislike dead you. Mo Shanghua then remembered that he still had the kerosene, which had just been made by those people. He could not help raising his arm and smelling it. His brow suddenly frowned. He also had a little dislike in his heart and said, I know. Just want to go back to the dockyard alone. Chinya came in with her head down. As soon as she saw the flowers on the street, she knelt down and said, Princess, I'm incompetent. I can't find out who poisoned Shueji. Shueji is poisoned? I don't know. Before the flowers on the street answered, Yanbei City came up. All of a sudden, it collided with the city gate. I don't have time to think about it so much. Mo Shanghua explains it in a low voice and looks back at Chinya. She first helped Chinya up and then said, You get up first and pick out the things you find out and talk about them. Chinya carefully recalled the course of things in her mind. Fong said, You left in a hurry. It doesn't mean what poison it was or in which dish it was found. The maid thought that she should first find a doctor to check the poison, but she didn't think that there was a mistake in the first step. No matter in which dish, no poison could be found. Have you checked the dishes and chopsticks? The flower eye color on the road coagulates slightly and asks softly. Chinya didn't shake her head or nod her head, and her eyebrows were tightly twisted into a ball. At the beginning, the maidservant was just checking the food. When she thought of this later, the dishes and chopsticks had been cleaned up by the maid in the hospital. Once the dishes and chopsticks were cleaned up, they would be cleaned immediately. Where can I find them? Therefore, this link was broken. There was no progress for those who were behind. No matter how much the slaves threatened, they didn't come out to identify them. Mo Shanghua eyebrow, this just thoroughly sink down. Ponder for a long time, square way. This matter already exceeded your ability scope. You can't find out also belong to normal. After a pause, the light in her eyes flashed slightly. She turned her eyes and looked at Yin Beicheng. Lord, I don't know what happened to Yunji's death before. Is there any progress? At present, there is no one around, so Yin Beicheng doesn't have so much scruples about what he says, but his behavior is still cautious, and he keeps the appearance of being away from home. This matter was discovered only in the past few days, and naturally there is no progress, so there is no one to blame. Mo Shanghua had a headache. She raised her hand and rubbed her eyebrows and said, Now that the bandit problem has not been solved, this kind of thing happened again. It's really a headache that so many things collide with each other. Yin Beicheng gently smoothed her tight, wrinkled eyebrows, and the bottom of her eyes gently let out a little. No harm. I will help you share. Mo Shanghua didn't return immediately, but turned her eyes to see Chinya. Chinya came over and dropped her eyes. When there were only two of them left in the room, she shook her head and said in a soft voice, As you are now, if you could do less, you can do less. You see, today, General Mo is suspicious. There should be many people around you, such as General Mo. If everyone is suspicious, how can you go on with your position? What's more, today's inspector, it's just around the corner. If the inspector finds something unusual, it's even more important. After a pause, she added, Fame is not so important to me. Moreover, if you let the outside world think that I am the woman who controls most of the big and small affairs in Yuzhou, then you will be safer. Yin Beicheng admits that it's good to have flowers on the street. No matter how you calculate it, it's really the best way. However, this will put her in an extremely dangerous situation. If in the past his heart was like a rock, and he didn't feel anything, that's all right. But now, she is the heaviest in his heart. How can he let her risk? What's more, the original candidate was Nanha. But now thinking of this, he could not help but lightly hold her hand and said, This candidate, I can change into someone else. You don't have to risk everything. Then, I don't want you to risk with me many times. His palm is extremely warm. Mo Shanghua did not take out his hand, only whispered, I am your princess, if not me. Who can be? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.